Wow! Neil Armstrong! Hey, wait a minute. You're supposed to be on the moon. I just saw it on TV.
Oh, there's a tape delay, and solar winds.
Nobody know what it might feel using the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of it's leaps of logic, it's guesswork.
Piecing up the puzzle, need to burst your bubble. Evil gonna crumble, yeah? Sit down, be humble. Got the ball, you better fumble. You'll get mad, cause at this fight I'm Bob's your uncle.
And then they call me the liar. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable the pathetic techniques that they have to use to prove their heliocentric model.
Bob shot the president, Jaren got the evidence. Eros laying desert witness, I shark them is evident. That the earth electric and it's resonant, your resident. This happens and I hope to settle in like some sediment. If we so wrong, why they lying to discredit it? That's not too intelligent, that's a guy, not an in court. But we ain't really in the settlement. It's time to awaken from the pseudoscience sedatives.
Blowbusters taking over. Bye-bye, moon man and rover. That's just so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead, but your ball is. Blowbusters taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster. But the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead, but your ball is.
Inner World Productions.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
Indeed. It is as simple as that. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Globebusters. I'm your host, Bob Xanadude60. And here we are back on another Sunday with some interesting stuff to talk about today. Just kind of trying to clean up the mess and, explore some of the things that I've come across during the week as I, kind of go around the web. I've actually visited a couple of, let's just say, flat Earth unfriendly sites. And it's funny, the stuff that I get accused of. It's pretty amazing. The ballers will come in and say the obvious of yes, I proved Earth rotation with the fiber optic gyro, which of course is just getting so stale and old because we've explained that a million times that it is impossible that it was Earth rotation that we did it. And not only did we come up with an airtight way to prove that, but it had already been proved via Ares failure a century ago. And then one of the other ones that I came across was, you and FE Core proved our Earth rotation with that great big huge gyro that you guys made, and didn't want to admit that. And it's like, oh my God, these people are so desperate. They absolutely cherry pick everything that we put out, didn't listen to anything. We were actually trying to, falsify, both sides of it. And it's so interesting because what we found out with the FE core gyro is that there's a reason why you don't see gyros, great big huge gyros being used in like gyro compasses or in any navigation equipment. They use very small ones, believe it or not. And the reason for that is because they ran into the same problem that we did. And that problem just happened to be that because the flywheel was so heavy, when you spin it up past a certain RPM, it would cause a precession because of the fact that the bindings on uh, the bearings, at a certain specific RPM only would cause it to precess. And then once it dropped below that certain RPM, it would stay absolutely stable, right? So what do the ballers do? Oh, look, here's that section where FE core was in the, and we even said this, we made it perfectly clear. This is what happens when you go over, the RPM limit and you introduce a friction into this. And it will cause a precession, right? So, I mean, we try and explain everything methodically, and all the ballers do is cherry pick. They want to take those little sound bites out of there, saying, "Oh, look, they're gyro processed, yada yada yada." It's the same old story, and the reason, guys, is because they have nothing to rebut our arguments with, and it just gets worse every day for them. It really does. I mean, gyroscopes, I a long time ago named it as like one of my number one proofs of that the Earth is not only not moving, but there's no curvature, and it does that in two ways, of course. We'll discuss that during the show here. But it's it's just phenomenal to listen to the trolls and the stuff that they take out of it. It's like somebody's telling them, to go out and we'll say this because, and then show this film strip or whatever, to prove that globebusters are lying about everything. And honestly, I take it as a compliment because of the fact that they try so hard to debunk the work that we do. Well, gee, what does that mean? We must be over the target again, as usual, right? And you know, I'm not getting a big head over it, but it's like, it's really getting to the point where it's getting ridiculous. And their antics are so old that they've had to turn around and deny every argument they've made in the past. And it's like, give it up, guys. Why don't you just try doing some honest research? Actually, try building a gyroscope yourself and trying this. Actually, try going out and buying a gyro compass and figuring out how it works, or even just a regular high precision gyroscope and do the tests yourself. None of these ballers have ever done any of these tests. None, not ever. All they want to do is cherry pick our results and use them against us at like we said it, like we're said it, and we're the ones that proved it. It's like it is unbelievable this tactic that they use. Everything is reversed, turn it backwards, upside down, inside out. The satanic method. Yikes. So anyway, all right. So we've also had some interesting developments this morning. Jaron came up with something that we're going to explore a little bit. And honestly, I haven't had the chance to read into it too much, but it looks pretty interesting. So we're going to be looking at that, and then we're going to elaborate a little bit more on what gyroscopes actually do tell us, and what gyro compasses actually do tell us, and the problems that they've had with Foucault's other devices, like his pendulum. The Foucault's pendulum, which is, riddled with problems due to the Elias effect. And this, by the way, has everything to do with what Jaron has discovered, which is pretty interesting. You guys are going to like this. Um, and so we'll be looking at that. So, but before we do that, let's go ahead and introduce the panel. First up, as always, is Jaron from Jaronism. How you doing, Jaron?
Doing great today, Bob. Thanks. Glad to be here. Let's have a good show.
All right, sounds like a plan. All right. So next up we have Austin Whitsitt from Whitsitt Gets It. How you doing, Austin?
Doing great. Just getting moved into the new crib and excited about the show.
Excellent. I know. We're all just dying to find out what Jaron's got here. I didn't have enough time to read it all, but I'm sure Jaron will fill us in. I did download the PDF, and I'm sure we will make that available for everybody out there. But yeah, from what I did see, looks pretty interesting. All right. So next up, we have Iru Landucci from, well, he's in Europe, not the land down under. But how you doing, Iru?
Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. Because I was setting up the microphone and I didn't know if it's gonna work. I'm here in Barcelona. I came to visit my flat earther friends, which, the guys were with. We make the conference. In fact, we're gonna have a big one in September here in a couple of weeks, we're going to have our first Flat Earth conference after the C19, circus. So I came here to arrange a few things, and everybody say hello to Globebuster. They don't understand English, but they know who we are. So hello from the Spanish guys.
All right. That's awesome. Tell them hello back. Very cool. All right. And we also have with us Zachary Zabala, or Good Times for All if you prefer. How you doing today, Zach?
Doing good, still here. Haven't warped into another dimension with my new Tesla coil, so that's a plus.
I know. Yes, Zach got a new toy. Why don't you tell everybody about your new toy?
Oh, it's awesome. It can take up to 24 volts. That's like super maxed out. So what we use only goes up to 20. But man, the amount of electricity that it puts out from this, and it's not a very big Tesla coil either. I couldn't believe it. It singed the hair on my hand. I got a little too close to it playing with the gas in the test tubes, and it actually burned the hair on my finger. It was awesome.
Yeah, a couple 100,000 volts will do that to you. No doubt about that. That's why I say, when you're dealing with potentials into the thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of volts, which we have native in our little construct here, I'm assuming up to around 10 million volts as an average. There's a lot of power out there to be had, and anybody that doesn't understand what's powering it, or that there's not a lot of free energy to be harvested out of this, I think they're just going about it all wrong. And this is why so many things have been taught with a misconception, like what magnetism actually is, or gravity, or the ether, or anything like this. But we just keep plugging on and on and on, and it just seems like everything that we are finding these days, it was exactly what the ancients, or the greats in electrical engineering, Heaviside, and all those people that Theoria Apophysis talks about, is actually real, right? So it's only when they got to Einstein and Newton, and even Newton said he didn't want to have anything to do with this magical spooky action at a distance type stuff, right? And so yeah, it just keeps coming back right in their face, and that's why the Globers are so unbelievably desperate, and why they have to do things like, when I go on, like, they're going to convince me. That's the funny thing about it, right? So I went on Flatsoid's channel, and Flatsoid, all of a sudden all the trolls are telling me what a big liar I am because of what we proved. And it's like, I think I would know better what we proved than you do. You really think you're going to convince me of something different than the results I saw with my own eyes and devised the test with my own mind to do it? I mean, they're so arrogant. They're so arrogant. Oh my God. Just, it amazes me. So whatever. All right. So anyway, that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about. So I guess, Jaron, I don't know where we want to kick in on this, but I don't know if I should talk about gyroscopes first, or maybe the Elias effect, or maybe you want to just kind of jump straight in with this, or how do you think we should kind of put this together? Because I haven't really thought it through.
Yeah, and I've got to do some more, looking into it. But just to kind of give an idea of where it came from, I was looking into, same thing. It was funny to talk about a coincidence with Foucault as well. And then I remembered the Elias effect, and I hadn't had a chance to really look at it recently, and I knew what it kind of said, but I thought it was funny. Anytime you find something that Globers don't pick on, there's a reason. There's something there that we need to explore more. So I went to it thinking, okay, what's causing this anomaly? And so, of course, Wikipedia, what are you going to get out of Wikipedia? You're going to get the mainstream opinion. So then I started searching for the paper that he wrote. I saw that he wrote a paper like against NASA and some other things. Usually what I don't think a lot of people know is one of the best places to go for links is to the bottom of the Wikipedia, right? So the Wikipedia is a summarized mainstream opinion, but then at the bottom, they list all their references. So just because, let's say there's a Michelson-Morley paper, the best place to find that would be to go to the Michelson-Morley Wikipedia. They're not going to mention any of the kind of things that you want to read about it in the Wikipedia, but if you go down to the references, then they're going to reference the original paper, right? So I went to the paper for the Elias effect, and I was just reading through it because I've never really understood it, and it actually turned out to be more than I thought it was. That this has been tested over and over again numerous times. There's always this anomaly. His quote is that during a total solar eclipse, the direction of anisotropy of space becomes coincident with the Earth, Moon, and Sun line. And then he also, basically says gravity doesn't account for it, and neither does mostly anything. He couldn't figure out what could account for it. But then now I'm having trouble finding. Oh, there it is. Oh, it was on the Wayback Machine. So then I found that paper finally, and I was just reading through it, seeing what he said, and I found the very last page to be quite telling, that he's talking about why he lays out like 4 questions and then gives the answers as to why they don't seem to work. And he says here on the answer to the 4th question, he's talking about his review of what I guess what it's test that he was doing is he was like letting a pendulum go for like 15 minutes and then resetting it and resetting it and resetting it, right? Because if you add all that together, you should get the required turn of a whole day. If you're just doing it every 15-minute segments, how much is it turning each time? So he's talking about here, he says, similarly, when dealing with a period close to 24 hours, 50 minutes, nothing justifies the claim that we are dealing with a lunar rather than a solar effect. So I started thinking, wait, what? He said 24 hours and 50 minutes is exactly the time that the moon takes to go around one time. So I said, hold on. I said, he wouldn't have known that. He would have had no clue. So here he's basically discounting the fact that it could be lunar, because what does the lunar have to do with 24 hours and 50 minutes? According to heliocentrists, absolutely nothing. So then I said, wow, could this all be caused by the moon then? The moon takes 24 hours and 50 minutes. So then I was kind of playing with that a little bit. And then it hit me like, wait a second. If that's true, I said, I wonder if the 24 hours and 50 minutes could be divided equally by the year. And so I multiplied 365.25 times 24 times 60 to get the minutes, which comes out to like 525,000 something. And then took the moon time period, which would be 24 hours times 60 plus 50, and you get 1490. And I was just looking at it like, there's no way I'm going to divide this and it's going to come out anything, a whole number, because if it comes out as a whole number, it means that the year can be calculated by the moon. And so I did that division, and sure enough, it came back 352.99. And I was like floored, because that means that 353 moon days makes a perfect year. And I'm assuming that the 0.01 that we are missing is because the 365.25, I don't think is exact. I think it's like a little, that's why we don't have.
It's 365.2422 actually.
Okay. So, right. So that's because on the years that end in 00, we don't have leap years. So I knew that it was, maybe that's where the 0.01 is. But anyway, at 353, that's incredible. That just means that there is a perfect way to keep track of days and the year. And that would be, and I was telling my wife, and she was a little confused because she said, well, then the stars wouldn't reset on January 1st. I was like, wait, what? And I was like, no. I said, you're basing that off of a 365-day year. If we went to 353, you would have to eliminate the other days from a calendar, and then you would be perfect. It would still on January 1st, your stars are going to reset. And then you have 353 24-hour, 50-minute days. So that was shocking to me, because I've always heard that you can't calculate the calendar correctly. Like they say, I think they say the moon is 354-day year. If you count, what would that be? 10 or 12 lunar cycles. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit off. That's why they say you can't use the lunar calendar. Of course, the measuring it by the day is off. That's why we have leap years. So I've always kind of just chalked it up to it would be impossible to calculate an actual year, but now I know that it's not. So 353. Somebody says Enoch is explained about a 5-year system. Yeah, but see, this is different than Enoch. Even Enoch's wrong, because they're all saying that there's no way to calculate a year, but it's simple. 353 is exactly how many moon days there are in a year.
Wow. So that, I always wondered, there's these tables called Stark's lunar charts, I think it is, or lunar tables. And it's for, I have it, and it's for using the moon to tell exactly where you are on Earth. by knowing where the moon is, and these charts, you know, with a sextant and a compass, you're supposed to be able to pinpoint exactly where you are. And it's like 300 pages, and 2 pages of it is writing, and the rest is all numbers, just numbers. And I always wondered, well, how can that work? If the moon doesn't line up year after year after year? But yeah, I can see now. That's wild.
Yeah, it's why. I mean, it would be a weird way to calculate the day because obviously we have night and day right now, you know, like, and so it would be a little bit weird to count the moon, but only because we're not used to it. Right. It's not like there would be a certain time where the moon, but it's not like that. I was going to say there's a certain time where the moon would be in the same place every day. It would progress through that, but it's still a accurate way of telling time. And that's all. There is nothing scientific about a calendar anyway. Calendar is just based off of social norms, if you will.
Mhm.
What we're
Yeah, the
used to.
Hebrews had a lunar calendar.
The Greeks
They went
also,
by that. Yeah.
and the Romans used the moon calendar to pay taxes, to, you know, get the payment of the taxes, not the solar in the first place.
Yeah,
Wow.
somebody said here, well, I was under the impression there's actually 13 lunar cycles per year with 28 days per cycle, which comes to 364 days,
Exactly.
which is wrong though, right? Because a year is 365.25. So no matter what calendar you use, you're always having to add days, remove days. The ones who use a lunar calendar, every so often they have to like get rid of a whole month because they have to stay up to date with, otherwise your seasons fall out of place, right? So 364 doesn't work either because and when people say that, when Enoch said 364, he was talking about actual days. Remember, I'm talking about a day that is 24 hours, 50 minutes. So
Yeah, and that's how the Hebrews
Right.
did it. They like after the winter harvest, not until then did your new year start. So on that next new moon after the winter harvest, that was the beginning of the year. Sometimes you had 12 months that year, sometimes you had 13. It all depended on the seasons.
yeah, to me, it's just, and Dr. Bass Ackworth just said it. Yeah, the leap year being added every 4 years just seems absurd. Right. So I agree. And that's why I've always thought it was weird. Well, why do we have to add this 0.25 days? That it just never even made sense to me. I didn't understand how a year would work. If you're talking about the Earth returning to the same position, how could it return to the same position, but we be a quarter of a day further? Doesn't that eventually catch up to you? Well, they add these leap years to make the calendar right. And I know we don't use them in the years that end in 00 or something like that. So I just always found that weird. So now it just kind of is a little bit more clear that the moon actually can be used almost exactly. I mean, I'd have to figure out where that other 0.01 is, but that's not much of a day.
And supposedly in South American ancient cultures like Maya, they use also a calendar, a fixed calendar of 13 moons, but the days or the month are not counting for 30 or 31 days. All the days in 1 month is 28 days, and they use 13 moon cycles. And in fact, the word month came from the moon because it's a relate. So there is something there that leads to, you know, research and trying to. It's clear that the sun calendar was invented by Jesuits, taking other ancient cultures, calculus, and things like that. But the fact is, they are created under the solar worships. You know, they used for a lot of things, but maybe there is not the correct clock to measure. You know,
how often do you think it is that people even notice that the months are off as far as September, October?
Exactly.
I mean, Oct is 8. So
December is 10.
8th month, right?
Yeah.
December,
November is 9.
Should
December
be the
is
9th.
10.
Right. So weird. So anyway, that's there's just lots of things like that'll open up the. I was asking Bob this morning. I said, Bob, what was because I know in the Michelson-Morley experiment they considered it a null result, but it wasn't a null result. They actually did get a speed through the ether, but it wasn't the speed that the Earth goes around the sun.
Right.
Right.
What
And
was it?
that speed was between 1 and 60 kilometers per second. And of course, the reason for that I always, reckoned was that they are using the Michelson-Morley device, which is linear interferometers, right? In other words, it is designed to measure linear speed, in one direction only. And what we know about the ether, especially after the fiber optic gyro and as well as Sagnac effect and those experiments, that the ether is actually rotating. So what's happening is you have a rotational ether that is cutting across the arms of a linear device, and as it cuts across, it would have necessarily kind of an increase until it got to a certain point, and then it would fall off, right? So that always made perfect sense to me, but I don't know exactly how that translates to the speeds or anything like that.
Yeah, neither do I. I guess I have to look further into that. But I just started thinking that it's funny that to me, so if the stars were spinning, then you would expect an ether speed of 1,000 miles per hour, or about that. So it's funny because you say 1 to 60 kilometers a second. Well, 1,000 miles per hour falls within that.
Mm-hmm.
So weren't they just measuring the rotational speed of the ether? Now, it could also be that the moon is causing it, because 24 hours and 50 minutes traveling 24,905 or whatever it is also within 1 to 60 kilometers per second. So now we've got a couple different options of what is actually generating ether rotation. So just kind of lots of things open there. And I've just been having a good week as far as finding some stuff. I don't know if you guys saw my show, but I could probably show real quick, Bob, if you want me to, the Nat Geo thing, which we all knew was nonsense anyway. But what somebody pointed out on Facebook was insane to me, that they set up an optical illusion. Let me bring up, and I'll share my screen 1 second.
Yeah, I saw it, and that is very, very interested to see. They set up that that trick with the band's color, and pathetics, man.
I got to find this. Is it on the National Geographic channel? YouTube's made it impossible. You can't even search like National Geographic Flat Earth anymore. You'll just get Professor Dave.
Yeah, I know. Everything is Professor Dave.
So
it's like that is sad.
Oh, speaking of, I got so many people asking me to debate that guy. And so I've actually decided that for the most part, I'm going to kind of chill on the debate thing, but I think it looks like I'll be debating that dude at some point. So maybe just put it into him good once for all.
Yeah. Well, before that happens, you and I are going to go over some engineering basics on this, Austin, because, for those out there saying that the ether doesn't exist, it's funny how we're able to measure something that doesn't exist. And we are also able to capture circuits that are mechanically resonant to this motion, right? But we'll get into that at another point in time. But this is just another one of those things that really pisses me off, about people that have no idea what's going on. And they're saying that the ether doesn't exist. It most certainly does. And everything that we find tells us that. We have instrumentation that has detected it. We have hardware that it is resonant with, and that we can actually take measurements with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we're just going to keep plugging on this. So anyway, but yeah, definitely before you hit this up with Professor Dave. Of course, not that I expect him to have any more knowledge on that particular area of expertise than your average glober, but it's just good that you have all the facts in your bag.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that guy, he straight up says that we need to be annihilated, that we're subhuman and need to be removed from society. We've seen
yeah. I won't believe it till I see it. Like, I won't believe that he'll debate me till it happens, because
I really
don't. It's gonna be bad news for him.
Yeah, especially if he can't have it on that guy's podcast that basically is on his team or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me find this real quick. I'm sorry, I had to send it to myself on Telegram.
No worries.
I don't know where it is now. Where's my saved message? Oh, there we go. I don't know why it's unpinned.
Okay. Right. Well, you can go ahead and look for it, and we'll cover this story real quick in the background.
Okay, go ahead.
While you're looking for that. So Zach found this morning. Of course, there's all this big hoopla about the James Webb Telescope. which is a bunch of nonsense. You know, we know it's not out there. It's really just another. It's either a uh, airplane based telescope like Sophia, or it is a ground based telescope. I'm not sure which.
Bob, a
But
little more of respect because we are seeing a dead star. Okay, and no, I talking serious, guy.
yeah, okay, you're right. But anyway, so you know they come right out and they say, are the colors in the Webb telescope images fake? Well, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what a raw image looks like, right? And as Zach pointed out to me this morning, we go down here to the third one. This picture down here, and here it says a raw image of the Carina Nebula as seen by NIRCam before the infrared light is translated into visible wavelengths. So this, to me, looks like any other amateur or professional footage of the sky that we see. Why is it that this looks no different from an Earth-based observation? Where are the gajillions of other stars that should be showing up out there? There's no new, it's not showing any new constellations here. I mean, you can tell what half of this stuff is, right? That's going through the Eta Carina, and it hasn't even changed throughout all the years that we've been photographing. And of course, they put all the color in there and, you know, all this nonsense to try and convince us that they've got this piece of equipment up there that's really up close and personal. Well, it's to some degree, right? To be able to show us all this wonderful stuff like this. And it's just complete nonsense, absolutely nonsense. So
yeah, they even say in the article that there is no color. The color is all added in by artists. They take the infrared spectrum, and within the infrared spectrum, they apply colors to different numbers of the infrared spectrum, and then apply that to make the picture more. Up here, the very top one, if you go up to the very top, the picture on the left is the actual photo. The one on the right is after an artist has renditioned it, supposedly.
Yeah, and how is this any different than any Earth-based photograph?
Yeah, not supposedly. I have right here the broadcast of that day, and you can see, because in the complete broadcast that takes like 2 hours, there is a brief segment of 5 minutes where they interview the team under the CGI compositive images of how they process the data. They use the clone stamp, they open the Photoshop program, they show you how they mix the raw images based on the infrared and start saying, okay, this is in the green channel, this is the red channel, this is the blue channel, we mix together, we start cloning things out because we don't want these specks or this dust came from the raw data, and here is the final product. They show that in the broadcast, in the live broadcast from the NASA official channel. So
yeah, so in other words, folks, it's monochrome converted to RGB according to the colors that they pick, that they think that are going to actually show us something about their distance, right? Red or blue may tell us supposedly certain characteristics about their distance or speed or anything like that. But the fact that none of this has ever changed, you know, it should tell you a lot right there. But they're just going to keep milking this out. And it's like, ooh, look at the pretty pictures, boys and girls. You are falling deeply asleep.
if you like, I can share a little bit, 2 minutes, the screen and show this segment in the broadcast, because it's also had a little few things that maybe could be nice to.
Okay, well, let me see. Jaron, are you ready yet, or you want Giro to show?
Well, yeah, have Giro go, since we're on this subject.
Okay. All right, Giro, go ahead and share your screen.
Perfect. This time I only have one screen, so I hope I don't have any trouble. So now I'm presenting.
You will be in a second. All right, and you are.
Okay. First images, no photograph, of course, from the James Webb Space Telescope official NASA broadcast in the official NASA YouTube channel. This is a the part is a little bit in the back, I think starts around 2 or 3 minutes ago. How you say backwards, but I'm going to play around 26 minutes. And
did you share it with sound?
Yeah. And
Okay.
this is how that images of the nebula and Carina, blah blah blah, it's
Okay.
came to life.
And we knew that selecting the images was just the beginning, that we would need a trained eye to take these exquisite data and pull out the beauty and the science potential.
Okay. Sorry for
So
that.
here's Jody Pasquale and Elisa Pagan to tell you about how they processed these beautiful images.
Ooh.
They have it up downstairs. I think they missed some of that beginning.
So this is how they receive this image or this photograph, and they start processing as a regular guy, making a tutorial to show you how you can do a celestial photograph. It's the same process. There is nothing else. There is nothing special. They have regular computers. They use Adobe Photoshop. It's all the same.
So wait a second. You're saying then that it is Photoshop, but it has to be
something like that.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's
light.
Yeah, that's great.
That we can't see into light that we can see by applying color like red.
Show De Pasquale, senior science visual developer. Okay, take that title and put inside of your ass and call me tomorrow.
Green and blue to the different filters that we have from web. And the reason we want to color the images is because there's actually more that you can get, more information that you can get from the image if you see it in color.
So it's a matter of picking and choosing filters and colors that enhance the details and the structure in the image itself.
The lag in the video is not from my computer, that is from NASA broadcast. Okay, I tell you because maybe someone out there is thinking what happened with the computer. Is the official video from NASA. So there you have it. Photoshop, for example, in this case, they took this regular picture that maybe they took from Sophia plane or from the ground, and they just open in Photoshop. They could be using other software more specific, but they use Photoshop. This is the layer panel, the typical layer panel from Photoshop. They start putting in the different channels the black and white or grayscale images. They just transfer to a specific channel color.
Shortest wavelengths of infrared light and assign those blue colors, and then move our way down to green and red as we go to longer and longer wavelengths.
And then we additively combine those together to get our full color image.
But there is a lot of aesthetics that are involved in this, painstakingly going through.
So here comes the most important tool in NASA, which is the clone stamp tool.
And cleaning these images up with an attention to detail, a level of detail like at the pixel level in every image.
Yeah, they are choosing by their own choice what erase and what leave for the good of science and beauty and art. That is the bias that they use, the art and science, supposedly.
So when I'm working on the astronomical data, it is this sort of marriage between art and science. When you're choosing colors,
the marriage.
Yeah, right.
Filter, beautiful. You really are trying to show the different details and the processes that are happening in astronomical images. But at the end of the day, you want it to be very compelling. You want it to be very beautiful because space is beautiful.
Because you don't want to be scientific. You want to be, beautiful. And that comes from the Pythagorean scholastics, where they talk about that they base everything based on beauty, and that is why they came with the idea of the sphere, because the Greeks, the Pythagorean, they believe that the circle is the most perfect figure, talking about 2D shapes, and the sphere is the perfect body in terms of the volume. So the Greeks assume that the plane of inertia where we live is a flat plane, circle, but the universe must be like a bubble, like a sphere, because God is perfect, God is beauty, he makes everything beauty, so he must be create our universe, not the world that we are stand, but the universe must be a sphere, and where we live must be a circle, because the circle again is the most beautiful and perfect of the figure, and the sphere is the perfect body. So that is all the idea behind of a spherical earth, and that is why we have been teaching school a lot of things about the Greeks and Eratosthenes, Aristarchus, Pythagoras, etc., etc., etc. So they are bringing those concepts in our actually in our actual times. Again, we are looking the sky, and everything must be beauty. We cannot present to the public the real data because it's boring. It's not has any impact in the mind of the people.
Yeah, it really must mess with their world to spend millions and billions of dollars on putting like microwave background tests out there, and then they return the result of a flat universe. It must be horrible for them.
Yeah, of course, and it's going to finish, but there is a special part at the end that is hilarious to see. Give me 1 minute more, only 1 minute more.
Okay.
Oh, they are clicking in the eye of the layer. Very professional.
And after those images were processed,
now came the actual brainwash, because this is, you must be see in terms of the social engineering, because now they are going to use the death of a star, which is like a god. A star is like a symbology, is like a god that is going to die, and we are going to photograph a dying god for you, and we are going to present, and of course we must have respect and contemplation of this beautiful act.
Yeah, and here before you move that, look at her face.
Exactly.
Look at her eyes, man. It looks like this. She's got this cartoon anime face, right? That, oh, I could never tell a lie. I'm so happy, joyous. Look at me, look at me. You know I'm telling the truth.
Of course, man. Of course, and it's going to, well, this moment is the complete $10 billion worth. It's the price of the James telescope is just for see this pathetic clown of NASA trying to convince you about the beginning of the universe.
A select few of us, very lucky few of us, who got to see the first images.
So this is a complete team behind of the images of chain web, the regular guys using regular software.
Just to make it a little more handy, so it's actually high resolution. So we have a team of about 30 people who are producing these images, and we feel incredibly privileged to be the ones who are the first to see these science-like images. When we saw the first
science-like,
yeah, of course, of course. That is the type of data that they receive. This is a regular,
that's
picture.
the night sky that I take right there.
Yeah, could be, of course.
Data come down of real targets. People were speechless, and there were emotions.
Speechless and emotions, because they need to link the emotion with these crap things.
I have to wonder, Iru, I always wondered why they always felt the need that they had to put this out there and kind of tell the public that, yeah, we're doing this all in Photoshop and all that stuff, when it's like, shouldn't there be a super secret CIA version of Photoshop where you can do anything you want with the metadata and take out all that stuff? Because, literally, that's how we bust them, right? We look at the metadata, and, besides levels being, obviously jockeyed and stuff like that, it actually does show up in the metadata of the photographs themselves. It's like, oh, yeah, here it was touched up with photograph. Here it was processed with, whatever, right? And it's like, why don't they have their own super secret version? This is, oh, no, nothing. We didn't do anything to this image at all. Or what? I just don't understand that.
Well, I think, for example, right now, if you go to Google and type tutorial of composite the, Carina stellar picture from NASA, they upload the originals raw data, but raw data is this grayscale images. They are not going to be metadata in those files, but they trying to get involved of you know a big majority of people around the world to create that link between that type of science and supposedly scientific observations, because they need to create agents to defend this religion. So for me, NASA is giving all this, of course, because supposedly the citizens pay taxes, so they must be have some type of permission to use the data that they produce, but also in the second line of reading what they are doing is, for me, it's trying to create an army of agents that defend, because how can you put or how can you doubt about this if I can download it from the central server of NASA and do myself this type of composition and blah blah blah. So this is of course real data, real images, blah 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 blah. I don't know exactly why they don't have the secret version of other things, but in terms of the space, I don't think they. This is not military tactics. You are not going to put anything at risk. The security of the nation is not at risk for presenting the space, in my opinion. So they don't want to, with this type of thing. This is just to toys for adults to play and create this or keep this religion on track. Maybe that is one way to see it. But let me just, after the presentation of the team, this is the magic moment where everything is.
And now we are ready to see Webb's first image of a star dying, a planetary nebula called the Southern Ring. Let's do it. Wow. This.
Did you see the reaction? The guy saying, "Oof, wow." No, because I'm looking at star dying. It's what is this? It's oof.
Wow. This near infrared image is wow.
Pornographic. The detail. The detail.
Near infrared. I love that how she said near infrared.
Yes, near infrared, and she said, "Wow, oof, I need time to recover." That is, take a look. I mean,
wow, the detail.
Man, her job's better than sex, man.
Wow. Look at the faces. Look at the face. What?
Wow. Okay. Well, here we are. We have a near infrared image on our left, or on maybe your.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the video and stop sharing. This is the if they don't do this, everything go to the ground immediately. They need to keep this. It's like a SpaceX. They must be put some guys in the background cheering and But what they can do with this? What is the benefit to humanity to presenting a dead star in infrared? What's going to change tomorrow? Because a lot of people ask to us, well, what is going to change if I understand that the earth is flat? No, you must be asked that question to your system, because the economic, the politics, the legal, I don't know how to say, but everything is based on a heliocentric model, not on the flat model. So what is going to change you if they present this tomorrow? What happened after this day in the world, after NASA presenting these 5 images? What changed? What is the benefit of the humanity from this space mission?
Exactly. And I've joked a million times about LIGO.
Right.
It should have been called something more akin to a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, right? The Star Wars opening line, because that's exactly what we're looking at here, right? Supposedly, according to them, that these are not real-time images. These are billions of light years away. which means that, you know, and in a galaxy a long ways away. So they are literally coming from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And, you know, I don't know how much more of an intimate connection you can make between Star Wars propaganda and NASA, but there it is, right?
It's 100%, man. I'm going to stop right now.
Okay.
Thank
and
you.
I will go ahead and bring you up, Jaron.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
So this is another awesome image here from James Webb. I don't know if people have seen that one yet.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, ah. Ooh.
Pretty. Look at these, all these beautiful galaxies. And I think if you read the image name backwards, it tells you something about this image as well. So
ID10T. Oh my God.
It's another Dave Weiss creation. Dave's
Oh,
good.
okay.
He's going to get hired pretty soon by NASA. I'm pretty sure if he keeps putting these out. So.
That was a good one, Dave.
All right. So just to talk about this real quick, because unbelievable that I didn't see this. A lot of people missed it. But so this is the Nat Geo Flat Earth versus Round Earth, where they go out and do at the Salton Sea, the experiment where they send out this board. Let me get to where the board is. And I'll just point out something real quick here too, just because it's important people see this so they can refute it when it comes up. Just remember that in this view, if a boat ever went over any kind of curvature, which would be the edge, the geometric edge of sight, you wouldn't be able to see anything beyond that. So if you ever see any water beyond the so-called edge of the earth, then that's impossible. Then that's not the edge. Then the edge would be further out, right? Because you would only be able to see the boat disappearing bottom first, and you would never be able to see any water past the boat. So when they send this little boat out and they start talking about the fact that it's disappearing, and when you get here, they're saying, oh, we're now seeing it disappear. But if you look, the water line is clearly way behind it, which tells you that it's impossible that it's the globe Earth or the sphere edge blocking that board. So that's how I kind of chalked it up, and I left it at that and never looked further. But somebody pointed out, let me go back to where they're showing the board here before. Okay, here. Somebody took a screenshot of this. Oops, that's not the quite view I want to look at. That one. Took a screenshot of this and said, look at the optical illusion. And I never noticed this. So the black line, when it gets out to the water, you're going to notice appears to be the center, because your mind tells you that there's a white above and below it, then a red above and below it. Well, then where's the other white? They've left out a bottom stripe. So when they send this boat out and they start talking about how many stripes are missing, they are lying, because they're basing it off of this being the middle, and it makes it look like there's more of the board that's fallen below. But remember, the bottom is red. So you can actually see almost all the bottom. Literally, you could stick it in the water and it would cover that bottom red. And then you listen to the guy, and the guy says, we're missing 1.5 stripes.
Yeah, and the only reason for that is because of the curvature of the earth.
So let's listen to this later. They're just liars. They just and it's so funny because these guys, they wonder, why is there flat earthers, this and that? Well, this is that independent investigations group that wants to go out and do these experiments, but now we've caught them in a clear setup for an optical illusion, which means now I have to believe that those guys know what's going on. Now I have doubts about all those guys in the investigations group. But let's check this out.
Can only happen why?
Because of the curvature of the earth.
Did you hear it, Bob, or no?
No, I didn't. Say it again.
No, is mine playing sound?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so let's go back here when they send it out. And it's funny, thank God, Mark Sargent, they asked him, like, this didn't change your mind? He's like, no. And it's like, the reason why is because you guys lie.
Of the curvature of the earth.
And what's really interesting is that some of the flat earthers, including Mark Sargent, are actually going to be here for this test. They want to see it for themselves. What do you think is going to happen here today?
I appreciate a scientific group coming out and trying to do this test. Great. Appreciate the enthusiasm, but cannot work.
Cannot work?
I'm ready. Bring it up.
So it's starting?
Yeah.
Okay, so the test is starting. It's starting right now. At first, all the stripes.
So you'll notice that you can't really tell when they're turning it around here that there's an optical illusion, but you can tell that black line makes you think it's the center.
At first,
right?
all the stripes are clearly visible. But sure enough, as the boat reaches the horizon, the stripes...
She said pretty much as the boat reaches the horizon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's take it back a little bit. This is not the horizon. The horizon is several miles behind that board. And again, even if we lived on a curved Earth, wherever that edge was would be the limit of the amount of water you could see, because that's the edge of the Earth. That's the place where it drops off behind that. So the fact that you can see water behind here tells you that this is impossible, that it's being blocked by Earth curve.
But sure enough, as the boat reaches the horizon, the stripes begin to disappear one by one. It's pretty amazing. You can actually see it pretty clearly with this camera here. And you see that the red stripe that was at the bottom has completely disappeared, and it's now getting closer to sort of the middle green.
It's nowhere near the middle green. Again, remember, the bottom stripe is red. It's about as thick as this one. So we're talking about missing maybe 6 inches.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
of course is
the
a
problem, Darren, is you're missing the brand new dynamic Earth curve variant, right? So there's your problem right there.
Yeah, my God. It's just funny because, and then you listen to this guy say how many stripes are missing. She just said it right. She said, we can't see the bottom red stripe anymore, even though you clearly can. But let's listen.
Stripe, that is.
So we've lost about 1.5 stripes.
The guy just said we've lost 1.5 stripes. Well, then he thinks that there's another white stripe under here, in which case you would have lost 1.5. But there's only a red stripe, and you've only lost barely half of it. So just another lie. Let's keep going.
So this can only happen why?
Because of the curvature of the Earth.
Right.
Yeah, the only thing.
Of course, it's just that there's nothing else it could be, but it's just ridiculous that.
Dude, how can you not see that the sign is blocking the horizon behind it, though?
What?
The sign is blocking the horizon, which means the horizon is behind the sign.
Right here. Yeah, I don't even know how they get away with it. And it's funny because I do know the guy Spencer. I don't have his number or anything, but if I can get a hold of him, this guy here.
You should send him this, Jared, and say, so what exactly is your reaction to this? And what is your...
This guy, Spencer.
Yeah.
I don't know his phone number, though. So, yeah, I'll try and see if I can. I do know what's her name's number, and I know she's part of that investigation group, too, so I can text her. But I would love to hear him because he always comes and says, I don't know, we do these tests and we keep proving you guys wrong. And remember, they went out here. This was in the smack middle of the summer. It was like 110 degrees, and they were supposed to get there early and get it done early, and then they got there late and didn't get started till like 11. I didn't see much of this because I was doing a live stream with Rob Skeeb at the time, RIP, Rob, and they were kind of doing this behind us, so I didn't really get a chance to truly understand what they did out there. But clearly, it's an optical illusion. They have obviously caught this guy because he thinks that there's 1.5. Either he's an idiot or he thinks that there's an extra stripe.
As the boat reaches the horizon, the stripes begin to disappear.
For him to say there's 1.5 missing, that never happened.
It's pretty amazing. You can actually see it pretty clearly with this camera here. And you see that the red stripe that was at the bottom has completely
So she knows it's at the bottom is red.
And it's now getting closer to sort of the middle green stripe, that is.
So we've lost about 1.5 stripes.
So if you listen again, though, she clearly says what's going on. She says, we're starting to lose the red stripe, which is at the bottom. And the investigations guy has to correct her by saying we've lost 1.5 stripes. So clearly he perpetrated the optical illusion and is trying to sell her on it.
Disappeared, and it's now getting closer.
So listen again. She
stripe
says
that was at the bottom has completely disappeared, and it's now getting closer to sort of the middle green stripe, that is.
So we've lost about 1.5 stripes.
Right.
So for him to repeat, we've lost 1.5 stripes, which you've lost a half, and that's just caused, again, if you go back there, that red stripe is probably about a foot high. So to lose half of it means you've lost 6 inches. And if you've lost 6 inches, that could either be dipped in the water or it's just covered by like swell or some sort of waves out there. It's so easy to explain. And yet they then go, and this is why when people ask, why don't you trust scientists? Why don't you? They don't have any bias. I mean, look at these guys are doing. And then when they're asked what could cause this, what's the only thing that can cause this? His answer is the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, or maybe a little Fraunhofer diffraction.
There's so many things.
So many things.
So many things. Yeah. So this is why you don't want scientists, because they have such an extreme bias that they push everything through that they'll never see the error of their ways. And this has been known in science for as long as science goes back. These guys are the most haughty, the most proud. They act like they make decisions based on modesty stake. They don't. They want to be the most intelligent thing that ever lived on Earth. So when you start talking intelligent design, guess what? That means they're not the most intelligent thing here.
Yeah,
They don't
and
like
did
that
you?
at all.
And when he's sitting there, basically, correcting her, trying to steer her in a direction. This is in stark contrast to the way that we handle it. Like, for example, when we did the FE core Foucault, the FE core gyro experiment, right? We showed it. We showed it's like, okay, when you spin it up to this certain RPM, it will emulate a 15 degree per hour drift, right? Why is that? Because there is a specific range on that gyroscope that is restrictive enough that it will cause that temporarily, right? And we show that because we are openly disclosing what we're doing. They don't do that. They just everything they push is to push their agenda and their agenda only, and they won't even allow for any other possibility.
Yeah, so we have the PBS special from Stephen Hawking that
Oh
we've
God, that was a
proven.
joke too. We did a whole
Yeah.
show on that.
Yeah, we've proven without a doubt that it's cut pieces. The helicopter's the wrong way. The birds fly across the screen twice, showing you that it's they just used footage and superimposed a helicopter back there. We know that they didn't use real everyday people. They used a scientist who lied on the show and said she wasn't a scientist, and they used a NASA Goddard head visualization expert and a
Mhm.
teacher. So we know that that's a problem. And now this one is chalked up to the same thing. So if it's not even a question anymore when people say, why are you a flat earther? And I'm going to do a video. It's going to be short, but again, I need to explain because it keeps coming up. I guess, TikTok's taking off. Tons of people are becoming flat earthers because of it. So one of the things I keep getting now is that there's TikToks of the whole interesting thing. And it just is another one of those things where this is why you don't trust any of those guys is they look at that and they just say over and over again. I heard Craig say it the other day that, Jaron proved that it's like, what happened to the stringence around testing that you guys are so important about? We got to know the humidity. You got to know everything. You got to know the exact density layer all the way down your observations, except for if you say the word interesting, in which case you don't need any of that. You just need to,
That's right.
You say interesting and it's proven. And again, It's like idiots. Why don't you pay attention to what I've said a million times? Everybody hold something at your chest and then lift your hands up as high as you can. And now measure the distance between as high as you can and your chest. That's about the length of your arm. And your arm is probably, give or take, 2.5 feet. Okay. So mine's probably 2.5 feet because I'm taller than you. Yours is probably 2.25 feet. All right. So now add that to the 17 feet that would prove that the earth was flat and you get 19.5. That's if it's me holding it up. So 19.5 feet. And then remember, the show even said at 23 feet, that's what we would see if the earth was curved. And at 17 feet, that's what we would see if the earth was flat. They stopped there. Then they show me telling the guy, hold it above your head. Then we see the light and I say interesting. Why did I say interesting? Because that's a middle result. That's not 23 feet, nor is it 17 feet. But guess which one it's closer to? It's closer to 17 feet. 19.5 is closer to 17 than it is to 23. So actually, even if you use their own evidence, it leans more towards flat than curved. But this is what you can do with dum-dums, is you can just imply things and these guys run off with it. And it's pretty pathetic. And this happens over and over again. We've seen them remove the AE map. We've seen them remove the comments from the Sir Ranulph Fiennes world record on Guinness for north-south circumnavigation because people were questioning it like crazy and saying, didn't this guy get in trouble for lying about expeditions? Didn't he get in trouble for this? Faking expeditions? So they removed all the comments. We have that on tape. They didn't have Stephen Hawking listed on the ALS website, even though he's the most famous person ever with ALS. They knew it was a shame that the guy was still alive 55 years later when everybody else dies within 5 or 10 years. So,
and again, that is the analogy of a dead start because
yes, it's very true. So it's just funny because these kind of things to me reinforce flat Earth. They're not at all detriments, even though everybody else falls off the wagon, or a lot of people do, or questioning things, or then they start calling people shills or whatever. It's like, to me, I guess you have to be in my shoes, but when you go out and do an experiment and then it's completely and totally misrepresented by some globe zealots who want to make a documentary, you realize that that's the extent of their ability to debunk flat Earth. That's the extent of their ability to prove the globe, which is to lie, which is to deceive, which is to set up fake experiments, or like whatever you want to call this, to set up optical illusions. Even though if the globe really was true, why don't you just do a freaking special where you take Neil deGrasse Tyson or whoever and go prove it? How hard is that? I don't understand why it's been 7 years and they haven't even attempted. Well, this is their attempts. Every one of their attempts is a lie. So that should tell us something.
That's all they can do, Jaron. The only thing they can do is misrepresent our own work. That's the only thing they can do because they have none of their own original research that they can show that contradicts anything that we've done, not one iota. I mean, it's just like the lunacy of saying that, Bob proved the rotation of the earth and Jaron proved the curvature. We're, other than that, we're complete liars. We're deceiving the world, everything that. But when it comes to those two things, boy, we are above the saints, right?
But what's crazy is it works, right?
It does.
So like if you look at it from like a tactical perspective, I mean, you can't really knock it other than morality because it's very efficient. Like people don't fully watch this, critically assess it, and dissect what's going on or think about like if they're being dishonest. That's not how it works. They just get on YouTube, see the mainstream video, see the edited job, believe what they're supposed to be led to believe, and then they move on. Now, the people that are truly psychopaths are the people like Fight the Tight Shirt,
oh man,
who still talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, still talk about this blatantly deceptive.
Because they see the problems, they see the issues, and they must just ignore them. And they
have to.
Right. So those people are definitely deceiving you by design.
Whereas, like the worst of the worst. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that guy is just such a joke. I watched a debate he did the other day, and it's so funny because I'm watching at the beginning of the debate and I'm like, man, why does it seem like he's reading everything? It just doesn't seem like it's his real evidence. So I go looking and I can stay there. He's on a debate and I can read on a website what he's saying. He's reading it directly from a website, just reading. I'll show you, Austin. It's hilarious. It's it's actually kind of sad. And then the last thing I wanted to show was I was trying to get a hold. Does anybody have a contact for Jay Tolan? I reached out to him on Skype, but I think it says he hasn't seen it in a year.
I do, I think.
Yeah.
If you have it, I want to contact him because I want to go down south and take some video with him of I need to, what is it called? Gigapan. I'll bring it up right now. 1 second. So I found this Gigapan. I love that site. It's just a place where people put large.
It is awesome.
Isn't it cool?
You have found some of the best stuff on Gigapan, Jaron.
Yeah, and they don't have really much new stuff anymore, which kind of sucks. It's been taken over by NASA and JPL, really.
Yeah, well, that's because they're watching you, and they watch you all the time, Jaron, because everything you do, whenever you expose something, even if it is something as simple as Stephen Hawking not being shown as having, ALS for one of the longest times ever, they're watching you, and every time you bring it up, boy, do they react.
The next day, it's like gone. Yeah.
Yep.
That's also like one of the best evidences, right? Like,
yeah.
So them lying is one, and then responding to flat earthers is clearly evidence that we're right,
Right. And there used to be this planetarium site that I used to use every day, and it was called, I forgot the name, mead.planetarium.com, Neve, Neave, I believe, Neave.planetarium. I don't know how to spell that. Here we go, Neve.planetarium. So I was going to this every day, and then I reached out to the guy because I couldn't, I would fast forward the years, 5,000 years ahead, 5,000 years behind, and the North Star didn't move. So I messaged him like, hey, bro, something's wrong with your program. The North Star's not moving. And he's like, oh, it's because the algorithm that I use doesn't have it moving. I'm like, well, then it would be wrong. Then you're out. And then how can it be right in 2 years if it's supposed to be moving a degree every 70 years? Then in 2 years, it's going to be off. So your whole thing is off. So like 2 days later, I go back there and it's switched to Stellarium. He just changed his website so that it forwards to Stellarium rather than, the first thing that happens is somebody messaged me and said, hey, how did you get it to go 5,000 years ahead or 5,000 years behind? I said, just change the date. And they're like, I can't get it to do more than 500. So I went back and looked, and that's what he started by changing on the site. He made it so you couldn't go back in time or forward. And then I messaged him again and said, just to let you know, you're just proving that the algorithm's wrong by doing that. Now you're telling me that in all the planetarium softwares, it never moves. So he forwards it to this one as like an FU to me because this one, it does move. Anyway.
And you know what's funny, Jaron, is Starry Night, the software that I got with my telescope, was doing exactly the same thing, right? And then they made an update shortly after you made that observation, and they made all those other changes to where it would only advance, I don't know, maybe couple hundred years into the future, something like that. Exact same thing they did to Stellarium.
Crazy.
It
Sounds
is.
like Null School getting rid of their AE map.
Right. Same thing. And
Yeah,
they
it's
tried
the
to
same
make
thing.
a couple changes, then they just got rid of it completely. So anyway, at Gigapan, I found this picture taken by this guy, Matthew. He says he's at Sunset Plaza. So I just noticed as I was looking at it, I said, what's this little hump out here? So as I got in, zoomed in real close. I'm like, holy shit. Okay, that's a mountain. That's something, an island. So I started to play with Google Earth to figure out what we had there. And we've got this location here, which is Sunset Plaza. Let me get down here. We'll take a look. So he said he took it from Sunset Plaza. I'm not sure where exactly, but I'll always err on the side of the, oops, I don't want to do that. I want to go street view, look this way. So I got down to about where I think that he's at and looked out this direction. Let me get down there. So he's somewhere on one of these hills looking off in this direction. So, and you can see the hill there. It's kind of to the left of these three buildings here. And so that distance is 85 miles between here and that mountain out there. So if you do the Earth curve calculator on Earth curve calculator there. So if you do the calculator on an eye height of, I think 350 feet the other day. That's airing a little bit high. I think he's less than that. And then the distance of 85 miles, you calculate and you get 2570 for hidden height. So now we just need to make sure that that whole mountain should be well above 25. I'm sorry, the island should be well above 2570 since we see a majority of it. But and you can see here the shape and what part we're seeing. So if you bring up, where did Google Earth go? Here we go. So let's go see what size it is. Remember, it's got to be above 2560. And if you look down here, the highest point anywhere on this mountain, on this island, is 900 feet. Okay. So that means that 1,500 feet taller than the Empire State Building is how far this island should be below, not just the top of it, all of it should be way below the curve. And it's not. And it's funny because even Google shows it again. Google knows that you can see it, so they leave it in their view, even though clearly based on the mathematics, you should not see that at all.
Yeah.
They still show it back there.
And this also proves what I was saying last week, Darren, about, the Globers say, well, you can see boats go over the horizon, as you're looking out away from you. And I said, well, yeah, but look at what we're seeing when we look side to side. If we look from the plains, like maybe the southern side of Colorado,
right,
where the Rockies start, right, and we can see then the mountains start going up gradually, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and we can see that very, very clearly from a long distance. So it would only stand to reason then that if we can see, anywhere from a few hundred feet to several thousand feet of a deviation from the horizon
right,
in an upward direction, that we would be able to see that in a downward direction also with curvature, right? But we don't.
Yeah. So what Bob's saying too is you could be seeing it left to right as well. So like here, for instance, if a boat took off from this rock here and left going across the horizon and just stayed right on the horizon line and went all the way over to as far as we can see, so let's say there, I mean, what do you think that distance is? I'd have to go measure it, but I'm guessing it's a ton of miles. So if in 3 miles, a person standing at the shore here sees the boat go over the curve, and over here, somebody who sees a boat leave here goes 3 miles and it goes over the curve, then what is this person in the middle seeing?
Right. Well, and the way that they do it, the way that they promulgate the deception is they say, oh, well, you're talking about a 2,000 foot change or 1,000 or whatever in comparison to 3,959 mile diameter. Well, that's bullshit. We're not comparing it to that. We are comparing it to the horizon, right? And if you don't think that we can see, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 foot in comparison to the rest of the horizon, then you have seriously picked the wrong day to stop smoking crack, right?
Yeah,
Of
they do the
course we
same
can see
thing with
that.
they do the same thing with the spin of the Earth. They want to be like, oh, well, just degrees per whatever. They're like, this is just this many degrees, so they can find a really small number to say, as if that rebuts what we're saying,
right?
When it literally just doesn't at all.
Well, and it's so funny. The Earth is so big, of course, we don't see curvature, and then but we see boats go over the curve 3 miles away. It's just a joke. So even at 61 miles, which I just measured would be that distance across here, you've got 2,500 feet of curve.
Yeah, you're totally going to see that.
Yeah, you'd
you
have
would
to
see it. Yeah, you would.
That's bigger than the tallest building on Earth.
Right.
It's like 2 Empire State Buildings right there.
Yeah, and the fact
yeah,
that
you're going to notice that.
the fact that this is supposed to be, and again, if you look at that mountain versus, the Google Earth view, you're seeing the whole thing. I'm sorry, island. I keep saying mountain. You're seeing the whole thing. Now, the only refute that I've heard on this is people saying that I'm not actually seeing. That's not what he's seeing. He's seeing this island here, which I kind of see their point, because if you get down with it, it kind of looks. Don't go in the water. Kind of looks the same shape, even though that's much is closer. So the problem with that, though, is if you look at the line of sight. Remember, we know where he's coming from. So if you look at line of sight, it would be impossible. Remember, it was right next to those 3 buildings. So if we get down here, you'll see those 3 buildings, and it's right in line with that island. If it was actually the one that they're talking about, you would actually have to be looking through these buildings. Notice that the island is, let me get back up there so you can see it. The island is there. So keep an eye on that. That if that was what we were looking at from where he's at, let me get down here again, you would have to look through, go back. There you go. So where he's looking at, you would have to be seeing through these buildings in order to see he's seeing this out here. So just funny that we're finding. So what I want to do with Jay Tolan is I want to go here and get more pictures of that, especially with his infrared camera. Because what I do find, the only point that I find kind of leans towards their direction is I cannot find that island. So I keep looking for it, but there's that island is just missing from this shot. Even if you're looking through these buildings, like I said, you'd have to. I just don't see that island out here. So I'm not really sure why you would be missing an island that's only, I think it's about 55 miles away. So where is the 55-mile island? Why am I only able to see an island 80 miles away and not the one that should be probably here-ish? Is that it? No, I don't see it. I can't see any islands out here.
You know what? If there are any viewers out there on the island of Maui, okay, or any other island where you can get a similar type panoramic view, if you can go to, I think, the south side of Maui, there is an area there where you can literally see, when you're panning from left to right, you can literally see from Kahulaui all the way up to the north to Molokai. And,
you want me to go there on Google?
Yeah, you could try that.
Where'd you say, Maui?
Yeah, in Maui, but I don't remember exactly the spot that it was, but we've been there, and it's like you can see all these different islands, right, from the west shore of Maui, right, across your panoramic view, and they're going up a couple thousand feet, and so we can see all of these different elevation changes. But at the same time, when we're talking about nearly 100 miles, we're talking about nearly a mile of curvature, or there should be a half-mile curvature of a hump in the middle of that picture, and it's not there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think there's lots of these observations. I know, Iru's done a few from the south, right? You guys were down here doing across the body of water down in Argentina, right? Iru? I don't know. There's some body of water that he was doing observations across. I don't know if it was this one or something, but I'm surprised we don't get more from here, because I think that some of these are incredible distances that should be able to be seen. So 113 miles, 127, 81. And I bet you from these mountains on a super clear day, I don't think that there's any doubt that you would be able to see across, especially because you can get up high, but it's okay if you get up high when you're talking about 100 miles, if you have to get up high to see across, that's okay, because you still get plenty of extra. Where is it? Which way is the water now? I got lost. Oh, there you go. So again, now we see this out here. What is that? Oh, is that across, or is it? You stupid thing. Hold on. There we go. Get up. So, from here they show it, but again, this would be impossible to see if we're talking here to here, 90 miles. So depending on if you're on the ground here or somewhere close, it's only 100 feet. Even if you're at the top of here. Let me see what we got here. Oops, clear. Got here. What is a picture of? Oh, so if you're at the top of here, which is what? It's only 1,000 feet. So, I mean, from here, can we see across there? Because at 1,000 feet, seeing, what did I say, 90 miles would be, even if you're at 1,000 feet, you're seeing 90 miles, then you're still 1,753 hidden feet. So again, if you can see anything that's anywhere near the shore over here, because some of these are going to be taller than 1,700, I'm guessing. So like these ones over here, yeah, these are like 4,000. So you can probably see them. But if you see anything down low, like if you saw this, and that's why we were doing Salton Sea. Salton Sea was kind of the same thing, but Salton Sea is right in the worst part of the world,
right,
to do
and
observations.
then they have to put in their bullshit, standard refraction, mathematics that is relative to nothing, right?
I sent an email to Andrew Young. I don't know, Fight the Fat Shirt always says his name, that he's some expert in refraction. So I wanted him to tell me what was the refraction from, because again, how can it be the same if you're looking over water or you're looking from the top of a mountain? The refraction would be vastly different, right?
Of course, it would be different anywhere you go, any climate change, anything that changed as far as pressure, temperature, humidity, particulates, everything would change that.
Yeah, so it's baffling because again, and I've heard them say all the time, oh, you guys always do observations across water because the refraction's so bad. It's like, well, there's a big difference if we're looking across water from, say, the Salton Sea, where there would be a lot of refraction, or you're standing right at the shore. But what about that picture I just showed, where here, can't be a lot of refraction here. We're way up high in the sky. Now, could there be some? Sure, there could be some. But is there enough to severely? I mean, think about what's going on here. They're calling it refraction, which I've heard them also say, oh, the sun changes position, and almost like it's because of the sun. But remember, this would be seen no matter where the sun was. So if the sun's behind us, above us, or even setting in the west, you would see this. In fact, if it was setting, you would probably even see more of a silhouette. It would be even a better view. But again, to believe what they're saying is that this mountain is taller than and I just to bring it up here because people sometimes don't get the gist of the Empire State Building. When you look at it and you're like, okay, now I get what you're saying, that's insane. Let's go to images and just see here. Okay, so when we look at an image like this, okay, look how tall this building is. Remember that mountain, the tip top of that mountain should be this far behind the bulge of water. Okay, so that alone, 1,500 feet of curvature, nobody really knows what that means. It means this. That is ridiculous to think that this is an Empire State Building below the waterline, and somehow, magically, it's being lifted up, not into the sky like a Fata Morgana. It's not super looming or whatever they want to call that. It
never appears upside down.
It just sits itself perfectly. Right on the horizon line, sits itself perfectly with the exact shape of where the real mountain meets the water, where the real side of this mountain meets the water. Everything's identical, except for we're told this is why it's a joke. This is why we laugh at it. And it's clearly a deception and clearly a line. It doesn't matter who laughs at us and calls us stupid flat earthers and how many years it's been since they proved curve. None of it matters when what we're being told is patently absurd. It's garbage. There's no way this is behind any curve and being lifted up. The whole idea of the sun's not really where you see it is just garbage. It doesn't even make sense. Again, I thought the sun moved 15 degrees an hour. If we're seeing the sun in a position it's not, and it's somehow moving, how is it always moving 15 degrees an hour then? I thought the sun's not really there. So is it not really moving 15 degrees an hour, but the optical illusion is? It's just garbage, those things that they tell us. But people who are I don't want to say too dumb, people that don't want to investigate things, don't want to do their own research, don't want to make their own conclusions. They feel more comfortable being told by somebody else what to believe. Those people are the ones that they're not going to look at it anyway, because what's easier, just to chalk it up to, of course, it's refraction, you dumb flat earthers. That's very easy to do. You can still go play video games and masturbate or whatever those guys do. So
you're fine. Please, Wolfie, do my thinking for me. Please, Wolfie.
Well, even Wolfie doesn't have any beliefs that are his own.
No, it's ridiculous. And like I said,
I have a question for someone. Answer my question. Answer my question. So I have a question for somebody. Answer my question. Michelle, ask the question right now and I'll answer it. I don't know why you can't just keep saying, will somebody answer my question? I have a question. Somebody answer my question. Well, can Bob and Jaron answer my question? What do you think?
Why don't you think of what? What's the question, Michelle?
Put your question out there. Anyway, maybe she already said it and I lost it. But there's just lots of, I think people could do more observations over distance to see. Now, granted, they took our ability to see and they reverse engineered it, right? So that's why it's a perspective hijacking curve calculator, because perspective works the way they say curvature does. Things get smaller over distance. But the problem is we have optics now that have screwed them up. The reason they came up with the refraction numbers, because originally when they came up with the size of the Earth, they didn't need any kind of refraction because they went as far as people could see and say, okay, that's it. That's what we'll call it. Well, then when people started to have cameras and telescopes, they ran into a problem that people were seeing further than they should. So they added refraction. That was their patchwork. That was their Band-Aid. And that worked for a while. Now the cameras are even better and infrared is even better. And they know that they can't now go back and say, oh, now refraction is tripled. They can't say that. So in fact, that might be while global warming is coming. Maybe they are going to say that. Maybe pretty soon we're going to find out that refraction is tripled. And that's why we see too far. Wouldn't shock me. So,
all right. Michelle Purr is a troll. I just banned her. Take a hike, Michelle. We don't need you in our chat. They came and she said they came for Alec Jones. What makes you think they're not going to come for your ass?
Oh.
Well, maybe they will. And in fact, we feel it. We feel that pressure every single day. Believe me.
No, and in fact, it's happening. I don't know if you are aware of the new UNESCO topic about conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, we're very dangerous.
Yeah, we're so dangerous.
But
telling so much truth.
No, but they make a meeting and they start spreading this new campaign called #ThingsBeforeSharing, and it is 8 pamphlets, like a flyer, a graphic, to help people to identify fake news and conspiracy theories. And even in the UNESCO own page, they mention conspiracies, quote unquote, about Rothschild and Rockefeller families and blah, 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 blah. So we don't have, I think we are not, we are just at 5 minutes of being blocked by talking about the new cosmology or the old cosmology about the flat Earth. They are coming. This is going to be official. It's going to be something like the C19 thing when you mention in YouTube and the algorithm could be block your video and strike and delete your channel. Well, is started now, but based on the regular conspiracy theories, not just in terms of the health.
But Austin is right when he says that what they do is effective. So it doesn't matter to me whether you think Alex Jones is a actor or whether he's real or whether he's Bill Hicks. None of that matters. What matters is what is seen in the public eye. In the public eye, it's been seen now that nobody is safe from talking about events and calling them fake. That's a huge problem for the First Amendment. The First Amendment doesn't give a shit about people's feelings, doesn't give a shit about who you offend. There are laws already about defamation. There are laws about harassment, and that's how those things should be handled, not by restricting free speech. But you watch what comes of this. Pretty soon, YouTube will probably announce that you can't talk about things that are proven to be true. And then that's the best way if you're putting out counter narratives or false narratives is you restrict people from questioning your narrative, in which case everyone's going to believe it. But look what happened with AJ. It did exactly what they wanted him to do. Is they wanted it to make it look like he was this evil man who is causing all these problems for these people because he questioned this event. And nobody who's a normie will ever realize the implications of what's involved there, that now what you're doing is you're allowing governments to get away with any fake event because as soon as they put it on their mainstream media, nobody can question it. Nobody can question it. And I've just heard a lot of people, I don't think they understand the trial. They're all, Alex is a compromised person because he didn't say this and he didn't say that. Go pay attention to what's going on. He wasn't allowed to say anything. The trial it's a kangaroo court. He also admitted that he wasn't allowed to defend himself. He was already found guilty. He was found guilty, and then they just wanted him to answer questions, but he wasn't allowed to refute things. And, again, do you think it would have gone well for him if he would have got up there and said he thought Sandy Hook was fake? The people who have seen what's gone on with Sandy Hook have their own opinions. We don't need Alex for that opinion. Anyway.
That's right. That's right. We're counting on, the audience having a brain and able to, critically evaluate what's happening there. We shouldn't have to plant all these thoughts. It should be obvious.
Person says here, Alex is a wanker that makes truth seekers look crazy. Simple task when he yells dumb shit on a national show. I don't know if I'd necessarily call it a national show, but I don't know for sure that he makes people look crazy when he keeps getting proven right. So to me, he's yelling and screaming about the elite flying on planes with rich celebrities and this and that to go to little boys' islands and to mess with kids. and everybody discounts him and says he's a crazy person. And then Epstein happened.
Yeah.
And that's what he was talking about.
And how many
It's a big deal because he's very influential. What he says is very convincing. And so that's what makes a big deal about it.
And how many people's truth-seeking journeys have begun with Alex Jones or
Tons.
David Icke, right?
Tons.
A ton. You can't take that away from them just because you disagree with something that they may assert later on. For whatever reason, they may actually believe it, or they may, just have a different opinion on things. And that's where we get into, if somebody has a different opinion than you, you do not sit there and call them a shill because of it.
No, people do now. That's exactly what they do.
But that's exactly what you do. And when you do that, you make us all look bad. Take what you get, leave the rest behind, and knock off the shill BS talk, because it does nothing but denigrate us.
It's like a truth or virtue signaling. Like if you're a truther, you have to say Alex Jones is compromised and that he's an actor and all these things. Just okay, great. I get it. You feel that way, that's fine. But he did lead a lot of people to truth, and then most people go off on their own and find their own truth. And you take the good and you leave the bad. And I think that
for sure.
Still a good. I haven't watched this program in years, but I also recognize that when I first got into this, I was listening to a show every day.
Yeah, me too.
But he does. I will say, like, I got critiques of the guy, right? Like, he's really scared of this little bitty country in the Middle East that's so small it has to be labeled out in the water, and they love dancing around September time of year, and they love their little hats. But he refuses to talk about that.
Oh, I thought you were saying he talks about that. I'm like, no, he does not. Oh, yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he refused. But so I, of course, have critiques, but I agree with your point. But overall, which is tons of people. I used to watch Alex Jones when I was like maybe what would be classified a baby truther, and he woke me up to a ton of stuff. And so I don't really see what the purpose of slinging mud is. But it's, I guess everyone wants to be the truther of all truthers. You're not I'm the truth police.
And he brings, so Greg Reese is awesome. I don't know if you guys, subscribe to him on Telegram. His videos are short, awesome. 5 to 7 minutes.
He's dope, yeah.
He nails it. And so I talked to him at the last Flat Earth conference in 2019, and Daria. So Daria, the girl that was on stand, talked to both of them. They both seemed completely and totally real to me. They both seemed legit as can be, and they like working for Alex. They kind of say he's crazy and that you can't really tell him what to do. He just does whatever he wants and things. So I don't think that they are compromised, and I think that he allows them to put out what they want. When Alex hosted the show, I asked him, when Alex Stein hosted the Alex Jones show, I asked him, did they tell you things you weren't allowed to talk about? He said, not at all. Zero. So anytime I hear that,
I gotta also say this stuff. So that girl was messaging me at one point saying she's a big fan and stuff. And she did tell me that Flat Earth took over their office where everyone was constantly talking about it. And he kind of sat everyone down and told them to stop with the Flat Earth.
He did. And I told people before, I got offered, not offered a job. I was offered to submit videos that I wanted them to review in an application, and then they would look into hiring me. And then they said, the only thing you can't do is don't do Flat Earth videos. So I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, Alex doesn't really like it. He says it will bring down the credibility and that he'll lose half of his audience, which is probably true.
Yeah, you can't disagree with that line of thinking either. I mean, I can't blame him for saying that. I really can't.
Yeah, and it's hard because I can't either. And so I just chose not to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to, censor myself. And I don't want to be famous. I'm not Alex Stein. Okay. I don't want to be in front of the camera. I don't want to be a household name. So for me, it's not a big deal. But anyway, it's just, I think people go a little bit too far with the, it's all an act. It's all a show. It's all this and that. Okay. I mean, wouldn't it be easier just to really put him on a trial and really find him guilty and really say he owes all this money? Wouldn't that be easier than to have everybody there is putting on a show for days and days and days? And it just seems more realistic to me that he's just a guy. And they say, is he allowed to continue? Yeah, probably. I'm not saying that he's not allowed to be where he is, because I think that they want that crazy guy at the top yelling and screaming because it makes us look a little bit insane. So I get that. But I don't think it means that he's working for them personally. Could be wrong. And I don't
No.
think he's Bill Hicks either. So that's just me.
And he could be operating within, a set of parameters that they've told him that he has to abide by, or else type of thing. We don't know, we just don't know. But all I know is when I got into truth seeking decades ago, Alex Jones was there, David Icke was there. And to me, at those periods in time, they talked a lot of sense.
Have you heard? I just listened to David Icke talk about Trump and Elon Musk. And so these guys, this is why I talk about taking the good and leaving the bad. It's like, I understand that there's a lot of things people don't like that David Icke has said in the past. Here's what I look at. Since I've been in Flat Earth, one thing I realized pretty early on is we are all unique. Every single content creator is unique. They all have their own beliefs. They have their own opinions. And just because somebody goes off of your opinion doesn't make them compromised. Okay. So David Icke does enough good, puts out enough good information that I think it's crazy to just say, oh, he's a shill or this. No, he's not. He may be a little bit eccentric. He may be different than us in some categories. He may not believe things that we believe. But when it comes down to it, I think there's enough good coming out of him that I don't just discount him. Let me see if I can find it. Hopefully I can.
And in fact, he has a lot of respect, at least for what I heard in the live interview on the street in London, London, England. I don't know exactly where he was, but he talks about the flat Earth, and with respect, he doesn't believe supposedly, but he have respect for the community.
G0, when you first came on the stream, it sounded like God was addressing us.
Hello, children.
Okay, no, because I have
10 Hail Marys and 10 Our Fathers, please.
Yes, no, I'm a Jesuit. I become a Jesuit, but no, because I am in a little house and I have people dreaming, sleeping around me. So that is.
Can you please do a class? Can you do a class for organization skills? I need to organize my stuff better.
Okay,
I can't find. There's a David Icke interview where he's talking recently, and he says, "Be careful with both Elon Musk and Donald Trump. That both of them are presenting themselves as one thing and they're not." And he makes a lot of great points, obviously things we've all said, but it's a good video to show that he doesn't like those guys either. He knows that they're involved. He's like, why is Elon Musk pushing for, first he comes out with a video saying AI will destroy the world. And then he starts a company called Neuralink where he's going to hook us up with the AI. It's like,
yeah,
what the hell?
One of the things I was saying is watch out for that like combo. Like if they were to pull out like a Trump Elon combo, that would be really powerful, right? Like a lot of people would jump right on board, and they may be used separately, but they have a lot of parallels.
And Elon also talks, and he mentioned about that he wants a basic income for all the people that is going to be without any job and things like that. And in fact, I really follow Greg Grease, and I uploading a lot of his video in my channel because he's a really great journalist or researcher, but at the end of his video right now in the Alex Jones channel, something that I didn't like is that he's a very close friend, or he talks a lot with Steve Bannon, for example. And Steve Bannon is an ex-Jesuit scholar, and he ex-employee of Goldman Sachs. He talks a lot.
Have you heard him talk about the Fed Reserve yet, though?
I just seen before coming to the show, and he also have a Oxford talk about conspiracy things, and he mentioned in the Oxford University that this is not a conspiracy. This is it's not the Jesuit. It's not the Freemason. It's not the blah blah blah. It's in your face. Well, of course it's in our face, but it's also them, because he never. I never heard Steve Bannon pointing of a real name and surname and saying these are the guys behind this and that and that and that. And he never mentioned Jesuits. He was one of them in terms of the education.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like a little. I keep my eyes open.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely one of those. You want to keep your eye on.
Exactly.
Wait,
he's that type of guy.
Dude, have you guys heard, Grimes is the
fucking
girl
weird
that Elon was with, right?
And hid a baby from everyone too?
Yeah. Okay, so have you guys ever heard of a song that she did called We Appreciate Power?
No.
All right, dude, bear with me. I'm going to read a little bit of these lyrics, but this is insane. So it's called We Appreciate Power. It says it over and over, and then it says, What will it take to make you capitulate? We appreciate power. Elevate the human race. Put makeup on my face. We appreciate power. Simulation. Give me something good. God's creation, so misunderstood. Pray to the divinity, the keeper of the key. One day everyone will believe. What will it take to make you capitulate? We appreciate power. When will the state agree to cooperate? We appreciate power. People like to say that we're insane, but AI will reward us when it rains. Pledge allegiance to the world's most powerful computer. Simulation. It's the future. And then it says, what will it take to make you capitulate over and over? Elevate the human race. And if you long to never die, baby, plug in, upload your mind. Come on, you're not even alive if you're not backed up on a drive. And then it keeps saying, we appreciate power. What will it take to make you capitulate? What will it take to make you capitulate? And then at the end it says, Neanderthal to human being, evolution killed the gene, biology is superficial, intelligence is artificial, and then it just says submit, 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 submit to end the song.
That's so creepy. She's such a weirdo.
Isn't that wild though? I mean, he made a baby with that. To think that they're not on the same page.
Not one, two babies.
Crazy.
The first one they named XAE whatever. The second one, she was in an interview and they heard a baby crying and they said, "What's that?" And she's like, "What?" And they're like, "There's a baby crying." And she's like, "Oh." She went and got the baby and then reviewed on that interview that that's also Elon's baby that they just had. They just hid it from everybody and had the baby crying in another room and she was home by herself in an interview. Just crazy,
bro. They clearly have an agenda to, have an artificial technocracy, artificial intelligence technocracy, as his grandfather was arrested for that very thing. So, yeah, it's very crazy stuff.
The other real quick, just the other thing I keep hearing is that like people, JP, who is Awakened with JP, that he's a shill, that he's compromised because he's allowed to say things. Remember what JP does, and I've learned a lot from him, is you can do things in song and in comedy.
Yeah.
They let you get away with it. So when you do a show like Globebusters and we sit here and we say, this is this or this is that, that's when you get taken down. That's when you, if you make definitive statements. And most of the time you can get away with questioning things too. Like, should we all wear masks? I don't know. Things like that are not going to get you in trouble. But if you say
JP is great at that.
He's great. So, I mean, just when I hear people say he's a shill, like, where are you getting that from? Can you provide
life jackets are epic. I love his whole thing on
maybe
jackets.
I should change the description of Globebusters from science and technology to comedy.
Yeah, I put mine as entertainment.
Yeah, I think I will
Yeah,
probably
me too.
do that.
And I've been heavily censored from the jump, Darren. So I don't know how that's working out for you. But entertainment.
Well, no, it's not. It's not helping me get any subs. I mean, that day's long gone. But as far as not getting strikes, I've been pretty okay with what YouTube has done, meaning that I've tried to be careful, only say things that are really bad on Rockfin and on YouTube. When I want to really get something across, I make a song. So far, they've let me get away with the song. I made another song about vaccines on my show on Friday.
Yeah, they've got me so censored, Jaron, that I was trying to respond to people on your channel, right? In your chats on one of the videos that Flat Max took from a Globebuster show, and I was responding to these people, and they have got me so censored that even though I am a channel manager on Jaronism and I am also a moderator on Jaronism, my replies were not showing up. And also, not only were they not showing up, but if you looked at the hidden for review, they didn't show up in there either at all. So I had to go in under a completely different account to do this. And this happens all over the place. If I comment on Zach's or anywhere I comment, my comments will not show up into the main channel. It's
really weird. That one time, Bob, it did show up for like a minute and then it erased it.
Yeah.
And
poof,
Bob,
that was real weird.
So do you see the comment, but everyone else can't see it?
That's right. I see it.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time, man. I'm like messaging chats and I'm like, why is Karen B ignoring me or whatever it is, and then I go look at from Kai's account. I'm like, oh, my chats aren't.
Well,
showing
she's
up.
kind of a shill, that's why.
Yeah,
and a witch, by the way.
Yeah.
Grounded extracts. I just fixed that. The reason you weren't showing up in my chat is because you were blocked. I just went and checked. So you've been fixed. Now I just wanted to show one other thing here. Oh yeah, so I found the somebody wanted the link to that David Icke thing. It's a BitChute link. So let me get this for you. There you go. And I'll play it over here. It's a short one, I think. Let me see if we can bring it up. And then I'll yield my time. So this is the David Icke. We'll just watch this for a little bit.
Beware of people bearing gifts when their history is one of not doing so. And I say that about Elon Musk. This idea that he cares about freedom of speech is a joke. He is running SpaceX. He's fronting it up. It's the cult that owns it. He is fronting up SpaceX, which is putting up all these low orbit satellites to beam 5G, etc., at the Earth, 6G and 7G to come. He's running Tesla, which is producing electric driverless cars, justified, the electric side of it, justified by human-caused climate change that isn't happening. And why are they pushing electric cars, justified by the hopes of human-caused global warming? Because they want driverless cars, which are driven by computer. And that can't happen with petrol engines, diesel engines. It happens with electrically driven cars.
Doesn't that make
And
you think of iRobot?
Computer is that
All of a sudden, a planned accident. Oop, car malfunctions.
Exactly. And again, you have people out there like, I don't see what the big deal is. Who cares if the thing drives for you? It's like, what do you mean? I'm not going to go get in a car right now, especially like you said. Oh, how do you know they're not coming for you? Well, the easiest way to come for me would be have my car veer off the road sometime when they're driving it. So,
yeah, I mean, you're much safer if you're a normie, right? Like right. we might not need to get a Tesla, but if you're over there playing Fortnite all day, you'll probably be all right.
And even if they have the occasional accident, with the computer-driven cars, they're still going to say, well, it's still infinitely safer than driver cars, right? Therefore, they're going to justify it, and that's how they're going to make people accept it.
I wonder
and then Will Smith's trying to save the day, and it takes over.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny though, because who's gonna be responsible when it kills somebody? So nobody's ever answered that. What insurance company is gonna cover a car? But if I'm in a car, my car's driving itself and it kills a pedestrian, am I responsible? That'd be ridiculous. And
yeah, no, they actually had one of these cars. A guy was calling it, and it was in a parking lot with no people. He was just testing it out. And it was supposed to be like a curbside thing where it comes from the parking spot and drives up to the front of the store for you.
Right.
And it ran 2 stop signs while doing it.
There's
and
another
the cop
one that ran away
pulled the
from
car.
the cops. Have you seen it ran away from the cops?
Oh my God, no, I didn't miss that one.
There's one where it runs away from the cops and gets in an accident because it, like, according to Elon Musk or whatever, they said it couldn't find a suitable place to park.
It was playing Grand Theft Auto.
Just takes off, just run over people. So anyway, so there's the Ike thing, like I said, and then he mentions Trump in there as well, which is the same thing. I mean, he's like Trump trying to pretend like he's against the establishment when he is the establishment. He's been the establishment, and he goes to parties with all those guys, and he was a leftist his entire life, not on the right. And now people think you just switch to the right and you have all the same ideals as the right. This is not how things work. He didn't change his mind like that. So again, they're going to use whoever they need to use. And the other guy you need to watch out for is DeSantis too. Stop glorifying this guy as being some hero. DeSantis, you have to look at my TikTok. I have a TikTok up about DeSantis and his allegiance to the same group that Alex won't talk about. So there's anybody in that establishment. They may even come across as great. There's no saviors coming. The savior, if you want to find out who the savior is, go in your bathroom and look in the mirror. That's who your savior is. That's it. I'll stop sharing.
All right, fair enough.
The globe earthers are at the bottom of the barrel when they point at someone and, oh, well, you can't trust them because they're a conspiracy theorist. And that's what happened with Kathy O'Brien. She's the one survivor of MK Ultra, and she people point at her and, oh, well, she's a conspiracy theorist, and that's what Wikipedia says. And I'm like, yeah, so, and a conspiracy, all it is just the government willfully making plans to and carrying out those plans on doing harm to its own people. And so I look at every one of the Holocaust survivors and say, okay, well, those guys are literal those are victims of conspiracy, right? Going with the whole narrative of the Holocaust. Not to get into that whole debate right there, but just
how dare you, dude?
But yeah, just saying that with that whole idea, if everything happened the way they say it did, then every one of those people are victims of a true conspiracy, and because they believe in that, and every person who believes in the mainstream story with the Holocaust, that makes every one of them conspiracy theorists. Someone who believes that Germany was committing harmful acts against its own people, right?
Yep. And one of the very first things I ever learned, being a truth seeker, is that conspiracy theories are typically far from theories. They enter well into the realm of conspiracy fact. And I think anybody that researches them and puts even an modicum of time into that research will find that that's absolutely true. I know everyone on this panel knows it's true.
Yeah, am I the only one that's getting this feeling that like flat Earth is really at the tipping point? Like I know people have been saying that for a long
Yes.
time, but I think it
No.
really is. Yeah, like TikTok
It's
is
exploding.
TikTok's exploding.
Dude,
I
TikTok's
mean, I'm
taking
seeing a
off.
lot of TikTok videos on YouTube now.
Mhm.
I do that Flat Earth Daily thing, and and now with all these new people, there's a lot more of their friends putting out,
Well,
debunking videos.
Here's what we need to remember next
it's
time a new
wild.
site comes out is that remember when YouTube came and then we started doing Flat Earth there, that it took off because the way the algorithms work within these platforms is to try and get people to see more of what they like seeing, right? That's how their business model. Now, YouTube did away with that as far as conspiracies go. Like my channel's not going to show up in somebody else's just because they're into conspiracies because I'm shadow banned. But TikTok hasn't done that yet. So when somebody sees something they like about Flat Earth and they start following a Flat Earther here or there, then they're just getting fed all the Flat Earth info.
Yeah, and then you have all 3 foot of Joe Rogan talking about how bad TikTok is. And I'm like, because of China, right? I'm like, yeah, ironically, China is letting us be more free with facilitation of information than the US is. So how about you just sit on your little high chair and keep your opinion to yourself? Well, I think we should
Using
use
a
TikTok.
booster chair, not a high chair.
Okay, yeah. So there's something else, right? What I'm saying is I think a lot of these conservative-minded people are slowly starting to have to pay attention to flat Earth because they find out a bunch of the people that align with a lot of the stuff they're seeing through the last 2 years and stuff are flat Earthers. A good example is someone named Peggy Hall. I don't know if you guys have heard of her, but she was crushing with the whole like pandemic nonsense, getting everyone out of their like job situations and helping them out. And she's been doing videos just like exposing NASA recently. She finally just straight up talked about how the Earth is a plane and showed her the flat Earth map and said this is obvious. For those that know, this is much more accurate than globe is of where we live. So we have like bigger people that are like respected, quote unquote, that are starting to go towards the NASA lies and the Earth is not what we've been told thing. So I feel like we're literally on that tipping point where in the next like year or so,
I would agree.
Something may change. Yeah.
So many people that you didn't used to think would be involved. Like, you guys know who, I can't remember her first name now. Is it Hannah Mayer? She has a podcast on Rockfin. I can't remember her name. Anyway, she just did a show with Owen Benjamin the other day and I was listening to it and they get into flat Earth, and Owen handles himself great when it comes to that by just saying there's no way we're on a spinning ball and that certainly it's a plane. And she's forced to say that she agrees. Not forced, but I mean, she's put in a position where it doesn't work anymore to defend the globe. There's too many truthers that have seen through the lie. So to be a truther who still avoids this is getting to be, it's kind of showing your true colors.
Dude, and even from like a tactical perspective, because a lot of people, they self-censor because they want viewer retention. Like we're talking about how Alex Jones said he'd isolate half his crowd, blah, blah, blah. But it's starting to flip over where now you're actually not going to be considered a credible source of truth if you keep denying flat Earth. Like it's going to flip over. So some people are starting to realize like my chats are flooded with flat earthers. So maybe I can just bite the bullet and actually start to talk about it and look into it honestly. And so I think we're just in this crazy period that's like kind of tipping back and forth, and it's about to flip over, but who knows?
How about the channel Archaics? Have you guys looked at him at all?
Yeah.
Nope.
No, I've seen people mention him though.
Yeah, you should check it out because he's somebody who puts dates on the line, which I like. He is somebody who went to prison. I don't really know the whole story, but he went to prison and in prison became in charge of the library. So he just for like 27 years read books nonstop and has all these connections. He's pulling connections together and actually saying that every 120 years there's a reset, and every 400 and something years. So, and it's always in May 15th. It's funny because when I go back and look at my notes, there's whenever these Christians predict the end of the world, they're usually predicting it in May for some reason. And so it's funny that he says it's in May and that it goes like clockwork, and that the elite know this. The next one is supposedly 2040, I think. So anyway, he's great, but he still talks about the globe and things like that. And I bet you it's just a matter of time, because his channel's really blowing up, that he sees through that too. Because I bet you if somebody gets in there and talks to him about it, I don't know if he's even heard about it yet, but maybe with all his reading, a lot of things will start to click.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of negative information on him too, but I suspect a lot of it's coming from the trolls. But yeah, he definitely has published some very interesting information. So again, like anything else, take what works, leave the rest behind, right? But check him out.
Karen says, I don't like people who put dates on stuff. Well, neither do I, except for he hasn't picked a date yet that hasn't come true. So he was on with Mr. Astrotheology. Was he? Okay, so he was on with Santos Bonacci. So see, this is what happens when you get in this community. You're cornered because Santos Bonacci's there. So he'll talk to enough people that he's going to have to look into flat Earth. And when somebody looks into it, guess what happens?
Exactly. Yeah. Like the number one thing for us to do is to just keep on elevating our content and like doing what we're doing and not get discouraged, because the other platforms are going to start to get pressure from all the people that they respect, right? And it's gonna just take over, and you're gonna end up being super lame to cling on to the globe. Like it already is that way for those that know the argument, but it's going to get to where everyone knows their argument. And so finally that day will come where these anti-flat earthers will have their illusory confidence and acceptance obliterated, and you're just going to be super lame. It's going to get to where it's not even something to talk about too much. It's just going to be really weird and lame that you can't let go of, like heliocentrism. Like that's what I think. I think that'll happen like in the near future.
Yeah, because it's got to be such a juxtaposition inside you as to when you become a truther, the best feeling is that you now get to decide your own beliefs. Nobody tells you what to believe. So you can be a truther and say, no, I still think we're on a globe because the flat earth is ridiculous. You can say that so many times until you have to look inside yourself and go, wait a second, that isn't a belief I came to on my own. It's not a belief that I can go research on my own. I have to actually go look into this and try and debunk it. And everybody who's ever done that is on our side. So
people are trusting the government less and less every day. And yeah, as people do that, they kind of wake up to things. And there's a reason why my phone has been going bing, 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 bing with every new flat earther that's been getting the clock app.
Yeah. It is. But even that, when you put it all in perspective, even if you have a couple hundred bings a day, that's kind of still a drop in the bucket compared to the overall population of the earth. But the thing is these people are obviously active in social media, and they're going to turn around and share it. And then you start getting into an exponential type of spreading of information, which can be super effective, right? So it's a good thing. There's no other way but to say that it's a good thing. And Dave's done a great job with it.
Karen, you should look at what he said. Karen's saying, I thought 138 years seems way too recent. He says that the last one was 1905. So it's 135 years, I think. But if you actually go back and look at the time, that's the time when we're talking about the orphan trains. That's the time where he tends to think that they repopulate the earth with children somehow. I've got to listen to it closer. But I think that time frame isn't terribly impossible. If you understand the growth rate percentage and how off it is versus reality, then you start to realize that we could repopulate the earth to 4 or 5 billion in a couple hundred years. Easy. even shorter periods. It just depends on what your growth rate percentage is. And when they tell us it was 1.5% or 1.25% right now, and the highest it's ever been is 2%, that's ridiculous. There's no way. People used to have 10 kids. Okay. Now they have 1 or 2. So there's no way the highest ever was 2 and we're at 1.25 now. There's just no way.
Yeah, it doesn't exactly make a lot of sense, does it?
Yeah, and he's way more researched than most people and he's not picking a date just randomly. He's showing the evidence that the Mayans and all these guys all went by the same calendar, and it's so easy to hide things from us that I'm open to anything, really.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's your guys' take on the fact that Ethiopia says it's 2014?
2014.
The Ethiopian calendar, like in Ethiopia, they think the actual year right now is 2014.
What do you mean, 2014 since creation, or 2014 on the Gregorian?
Yeah, like they just don't think it's 2022. They think it's 2014. Like they quantify the years differently. And so then they have the idea of basically you checking to the Mayan calendar, and then that would be 2012, which would be 2 years prior to, years prior to this year.
Honestly, Austin, it's so convoluted, whether the Ethiopian calendar is 2014 and the Mayan is 2012, but then you also look at like some of the stuff that Awaranon put out by the one guy that did all the research on the moon, right? And, according to that, our tropics of Capricorn and Cancer should be renamed to something completely different now. So is there evidence that we are not in the correct time, so to speak? Absolutely. But there's so much of it, and some of it seems to be, in contrast to other sources. What do you believe? It's
for sure. Yeah, and of course, Mayan supposedly ended in 2012, and then they're just still counting the years, and it's supposedly 2014. But I just didn't know if you guys had heard that. Like it's just my opinion, right? Because I guess it has to do with my worldview. But I put a lot of importance on Ethiopia. Like I think that they're pretty base, and that's one of the only ways we even got the Book of Enoch. So I just thought it was interesting. Like I just find it interesting because that would mean that if you combine those 2 years ago, things did drastically change, right? Like 2 years ago is when everything changed. So if you have 2014 now, 2 years ago being 2012, but I just was throwing that out there.
You know what though, Austin? Honestly, I could go back at almost any time period in the last 25 years and make that same statement. Because wow, it seems like every other year or every other month, there's something that is just insane that happens that seems to change the entire paradigm. So
fair enough.
We're in the zone for sure, but what exactly is happening? And again, this is absolutely on purpose to be obfuscated to keep people from finding the real truth.
Yeah, no, and I want to make sure that the whole audience understands. I'm in no way saying I think that the world's ending or anything. I was just throwing out the 2014 thing. Everyone calm down. I'm in the process of making a baby. Okay, so I obviously don't think the world's about to end.
And I don't think so either, because I got tired of I did fall for a couple of the dates and thinking things were going to end, and now I just laugh at those people because I usually don't agree at all with their reasoning. But I do think that we've been reset, and I do think that we could build back this kind of population rather quickly. And I think the year 0 is one of the bigger jokes that there ever has been, that you would just never go back in time and apply a 0 to some date in the past. It would completely destroy everything. Everything written would have to be rewritten. Everything historical would have to be adjusted, which is what they say they did. But once you realize that books are not dated by any kind of dating method, they're dated by paper style, writing style, and ink style, then you realize how easy it is to forge or fake any document that you want. You just need to know what do they look for? Oh, Egyptians wrote on papyrus. Okay, grab a piece of papyrus, grind it into the dirt, and then grab, what did they write with? What kind of ink? Okay, grab that ink and then choose that writing style. And if you do that, then whoever finds that document will date it to the Egyptian period. Same thing with rocks and stones. Same thing. It's all nonsense that they try and apply to these things. You cannot carbon date a rock back to a certain date. So they find organic material around it, and everything has to jive with their little system. And if it doesn't, it's just like science, right? I mean, these kind of things aren't allowed in peer-reviewed circles.
That's
right. You're not allowed to change the paradigm.
Absolutely. And let's not forget that the elites have always had access to the true history of Earth, because they keep it to themselves in their own archives, whether or not it's at the bottom, the basement of the Vatican, or in some side of a mountain somewhere for preservation. They know what's up. They really do, and they're behind writing the script for what they want you to believe. But the more I find out about this entire construct, I begin to believe more and more and more all the time that there is a shitload of additional land out there. I really do think that. And I think that's one of the biggest things that they're hiding from us because, well, I don't even have to say why if you can't figure it out for yourself. But, it's good to be the king, right? You control everything. And, we get a pittance and we have to extrapolate as best we can with information that is typically faulty, right? Garbage in, garbage out, just like any computer.
So I see that there's only 200 thumbs up out of the 700 watching. So we're just going to pause the show until the likes get up.
Yeah, 251 thumbs up I'm showing here. We've got over 700 showing on YouTube. And on Rockfin, we got 75 people on Rockfin. So yeah, about 800 people are watching. So yeah, give us some thumbs up, guys. It would help. I don't know if it really.
I think it's funny because I like when I do my streams, when I see that there's not a bunch of thumbs up, I said, okay, I guess we're just gonna sit here then, and I'll literally just sit there, and then the thumbs up will just jump up like that. So
I know.
I figured I'd try it.
And we're so heavily, it doesn't matter. YouTube, we could have 10 million thumbs up, and if they're not going to propagate it to any other recommendations, they're just not going to. So,
yeah, of course.
I'm looking at I was looking at the comments on that Nat Geo thing. Some people are already putting, "Hey, that black stripe's not in the center. Nice job with the optical illusion." But some people are really sharp. They said, "How about this? A flat Earth could not have a molten iron core, a magnetic field, or plate tectonics that require a mantle to move over it. A flat disk would be dead geologically."
Oh, this guy's crushing.
Yeah, Lynn, it's a good girl. She's very smart. And then this other person said, if the Earth was flat, how deep is it? How do we keep the oceans from drying out? What about hurricanes? How does it evolve around the sun to get day and night? It's just funny to me. That,
Oh my God.
maybe we need to do a Flat Earth 101 again soon.
well, that's what we're kind of doing, between this and the Wednesday/Thursday night show.
No, I mean, like maybe we could crunch it into 2 hours to where we can all share a link to people who need to get a good starter point.
Yeah, or the FE app or the Globebusters 24/7 channel. I mean, seriously, you watch the Globebusters 24/7 channel for a week or two, and some of the absolute best material that any of us have ever done shows up in there, and it's all laid out very nicely.
Yeah, and that's one thing I think TikTok is so good for. It's like a minute and a half. And some of them make such good TikToks with their little green screen that in a minute and a half, it's like you could never be a Glober again if you really listened. So it's like we got stuff for everybody. People with patience that want to really learn. We got the ADHD covered over here, even though that's clearly made up fake nonsense. I'm all about the TikTok recently because I saw this one guy that's crushing on TikTok with the flat Earth videos, and I'm like, you get past the censorship a lot more over there. So
Caleb, the blonde guy,
maybe blonde hair, yeah.
He's good.
It's crazy.
I've seen him.
This week I was going through the comments, and one of the comments in the Globebusters chat was that I was a baller for years and didn't believe it, and thanks to Jaron and you guys, Globebusters, you got me convinced to come to the other side. And I'm looking at the name, and it was like Bradley Boynton or something like that, and I remember that guy from being a troll from years ago by the name of Brad Boynton, right? And I'm like going, oh my God, no way did that guy convert to a flat earther. And so, yeah, dead serious. So that kind of did my heart good because he was one of those people that were just one of the biggest trolls ever, and now he's 100% flat earth.
Let's go.
Yep.
When it comes to the censorship, I was thinking that this is one of the big reasons why we need to make sure that we get out there to like public events, because that's where we have the most freedom, right? And out in public spaces and doing like things like that, like such as the the flat earth meetups and stuff. So I was thinking, the college over here, they do football games all the time. Why don't I just go stand out in front of a football game with my abolish NASA sign? And there's a great way to talk and interact with just public people that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cops love when you do that too, bro. Talking from experience, they're gonna love you.
Yep. And what our audience can do, we do this research, we put it out there on our channels and stuff like this. And the audience, what you can do obviously is there's nothing like the man on the street activism out there. We know how effective that can be. And getting the information correlated and making it in a somewhat easily digestible format. And there's a lot of people that are very talented at that, especially the new guy that you got working on it that does your videos, Jaron, Flatmax.
Flatman X.
Flatman X, yeah, Flatman X has done some fabulous work doing this.
He's
I was
awesome.
looking, yeah, he's really good, and I think everybody can do that. And again, when we collectively convert a bunch of people every single day and we keep that momentum going, then even with YouTube censoring the living dog crap out of us, we're still going to make progress, and we are. I mean, our numbers dropped to horrible numbers. Before YouTube did this, we used to routinely get nearly 2,000 live viewers on a show, right? Then it dropped down to maybe 300 or 400. Now we're up 800-900. And admittedly, I haven't even been promoting it on social media, which I need to start doing that. But this is the kind of stuff that you guys can do to, help get the word out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of the content creators that you like, just ask them, hey, do you mind if I clip a couple things out of what you said here? And just make a quick 1-minute video and go throw it up on TikTok.
And the rule always is just link back to the person. That's
Give some credit.
Never been upset at anybody for using my stuff. In fact, that's what it's for. It is kind of a slap in the face when somebody uses you and there's no link to you, because you're like, all right, well, it would have been nice to have a link. But I get it. Sometimes you.
Well, and speaking of that, Jaron, I know this was an oversight,
Uh-oh.
but a couple of those that he took directly from the Globebusters show, there is no mention of the Globebusters.
I will tell him that.
Yeah, it's not a big deal because you and I are kind of joined at the hip anyway. But as far as people's perspective, but yeah, it would be nice to see the Globebusters in the credits anyway, especially since you're part of us, right? We started it.
I noticed that he did some Globebuster clips, but I didn't notice he didn't.
No links, even the ones on your channel. But whatever, I'm not too carried away about it. And like I said, I'm sure it was just an oversight.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it was. Anyway, if you go to that Nat Geo one, I'll put the link in the chat for people. But you got to read the comments. The comments are great. There's a lot of flat earthers in there. A lot of people pointing out the painfully obvious, and it's so funny to see the Globers who just come in and say the same things all the time, just yelling and screaming, calling other people stupid. This one says, flat earthers are truly stupid people. Explain the North Pole. Where is it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Who's the truly stupid person here? I don't think it's who you think it is. Anyway, it's pretty good to see some of these comments. This person here says, if you spin a flat coin, it rotates at a high speed and looks like a sphere. If the Earth is rotating at high speed and it's also a sphere, that is a contradiction.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So,
all right, smart guys. All right.
So anyway, getting back to like today's show's title, and we're 2 hours and 15 minutes basically onto the show, but a couple of things that I really wanted to say to people is that the flat earthers have done tons of gyroscope experiments. We've done them. Foucault's done them. You've got Foucault, right? And Foucault's Follies, Foucault's Gyroscope, right? And take a look at this cheesy ass gyroscope that Foucault used. And let me find that picture. Hang on a second. There it is. Okay. So here we have Leon Foucault's gyroscope. And this is the one, guys, that claimed world fame for detecting a drift or a precession, right? From France, which would have a really super minimal drift right up there anyway. This thing is like pre-Christ. It's very small, right? But it is nowhere near as technologically accurate and machined as well as our 21st century uh, machine gyros that we have that will spin by themselves for up to a half an hour, right? All by themselves, no problem. And yet this man claims that he detected the correct amount of drift for the Earth rotation. And in fact, nobody, not one single person ever, has ever been able to replicate that experiment. And of course, when we do it, the ballers say, "Well, that's because you're you're um,
Incompetent.
well, yeah, we're incompetent, or it's too binding. The gyroscope is being bound up, yada yada. Every reason in the book, then them actually doing it themselves and showing us the proper way that it should be done. And again, they will cherry pick, stuff like FE Core's large gyro that Stefan made, and we discovered right away that that had a very definite bearing bonding problem that once you spun it up to a specific RPM, you could kind of make it look like there's a 15 degree per hour drift. Well, and that's all they want to see because that's all they want people to see. But, we put all the information out there. We then what did they say to us? They said, well, um, you can't measure something as low as 15 degrees per hour. So what did we do? We put it on a rotational plate that rotated once every 24 hours or 15 degrees per hour. You know what? Not only did it do it, it did it accurately. Then to accentuate or put an exclamation mark on that point with the gyroscope, um, we had one guy put it on a 7-day um, what do they call those things? Recorder, a 7-day recorder, which basically, you know, rotates once every 7 days, which means that it's rotating at 1.2 degrees per hour. And not only did the gyroscope pick up that drift, but it picked it up at an astounding rate of accuracy, right? So it's like, wow, here we're showing that these precision gyroscopes that you can buy for a couple $100 not only prove beyond any doubt whatsoever that they can measure Earth rotation, that they have the ability to do it, but they even have the ability to do accurately 1/7 that rotation, right? So how is it that Foucault with this POS gyroscope here that we're looking at was able to pick up this very minuscule. Remember, he was in France. He was way north, right? Which means that his drift, his expected drift, might have been, a degree at best, right? And he had to have all these extenders on there to increase his um, resolution of what his gyroscope was showing. But no, we've never been able to reproduce it. Of course, the original gyroscope is lost and nobody can find it anymore. But yeah, it's funny how the ballers will say, oh, yeah, 200 years ago they could make a gyroscope, they could do it, but not today. That is absurd, right?
Bob, can you explain to me why it has to be the sign of the latitude? Why wouldn't, since the platform itself, whatever's attached to the pendulum, would make a complete turn, no matter where you're at? So if I'm here in the north in California, looking at the North Star, and I've got something sitting on a platform, by the same time the next day, that platform has made a 360-degree turn. So why would you not expect a 360-degree turn of the gyroscope? I'm sorry,
Well,
if we're talking about a pendulum.
yeah, you're talking about a pendulum, but the formula was derived for a gyroscope. And as you know, the further north you go, the lower the speed, right? The edge velocity speed goes.
Right.
So,
but we're still making a turn, right?
Absolutely. Well, in theory,
right.
Absolutely. It's more like absolutely not. We're making a turn, but yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I've never understood that one.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. And again, I think we may be even playing into a little bit the Glober's math on that. But that is the formula, nevertheless derived from Foucault himself, and so we're using it because if it's good enough for the ballers, then it should be good enough for us to use it as well. Because they don't want to accept anything like edge velocity. They want you to say, oh, well, 1,037.5 miles per hour is really just 0.00425 RPM or something like that, which of course really, really tones it down a lot, right? But it's still, if you're looking at something going by at 1,000 miles an hour, it's hauling ass,
Yeah.
So as with everything else, they have to minimalize it to put a picture in people's minds like, oh, there's no way we'd ever feel this ever. And they say that they tell us that we won't feel it, but they seem to forget that we have all this instrumentation that is capable of such precision measurements on movement that it's utterly ridiculous. And yet we've never been able to pick up any motion measurements at all. These accelerometers, which deal with extremely precise measurements, have never been able to pick it up. Not ever, not once. And that's why when we actually measure the rotation of the ether, they have to completely obfuscate that and say, no, it's the rotation of the Earth. It's like, well, then why don't you just say that it was Michelson Gale that measured this 100 years ago? Why? Because then they'd have to justify Michelson Morley with some other reason than the bullshit excuse that was given by mainstream science at the day. So there you have it. Then, of course, you've got the Foucault pendulum, which is subject to so many errors, not the least of which, of course, is the Elias effect. Man, I'm losing my voice again, where basically there was any type of solar or lunar uh, eclipse or anomaly or anything like that, it would cause the pendulum to stop or completely reverse directions or go at anomalous rates. And yet they want to completely brush that off and say, no, that that doesn't count. Why? Because it goes against their model. And again, when you're looking at the Foucault's pendulum, they try and make you think that somehow that pendulum is in a separate frame of reference than the Earth itself. Well, how can it be if it's physically connected to the Earth, right? It can't be. It is physically connected to that ball up there, which is physically connected to a frame, which comes down and connects to the Earth. Therefore, it is impossible for it to be in a separate frame of reference. So the whole explanation of how the Foucault pendulum works in the first place is nonsense, right?
Agree.
So anyway, and that's why Foucault, he's basically a liar. He lied about the gyroscope, and the premise on the way that this supposed pendulum works is a straight up lie. It just is, and it doesn't work the way they say it. There
And
are
we know
tons.
that. Why wouldn't they? When you have Einstein say there's no optical or mechanical experiment that can prove the Earth moves, he knew about Foucault's pendulum.
Of course he did.
So of course
but
he can't say that because he knows that it doesn't prove anything.
That's right, and they can never ever put up one word that goes against the mainstream narrative, even if it's blatantly and obviously true. Just like 5 years ago, we had a geometric horizon that was blocking things. Today,
Yeah.
oh no geometric horizon.
Yeah,
That
you've
doesn't
never
exist.
seen it. You
Never
can
seen it.
never see the actual geometric horizon.
There's one thing you have to say for globe trolls, and that is that they are all losers and liars. And simple as that.
Well, the ones that do that make this their livelihood or totally, absolutely, without a doubt. Now, I don't like calling people globers or globetards or anything. That are just people like us who believe it because they've never looked into it.
Yeah, I don't either. But I talk about Fight the Fat Shirt and Wolfie and all this stuff. Who, again, Wolfie thinks that because he's a freaking pilot, that gives him all authority to say that the Earth is a spinning ball. that doesn't mean jack. Flying a plane is easy and anybody can do it. And I'm sorry, but there's really not that much to it. And as far as the engineering and understanding of what's actually going on, well, computers take care of most of that for the pilots today. All they have to do is cross-check what the computer is doing. So they're basically babysitting a computer. But, there are enough pilots out there with enough horse sense to know that the Earth is not a spinning ball. But they also know that if they want to keep their job, keep their mouth shut. You can't blame them for that,
Dude,
right?
I have
Yeah, look what happened to the
100%.
lady that came on to Glowbusters and said her real name, and
Yeah,
she was
Lydia,
grounded the
our
very
sleuth.
next day.
Yep.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I have 100% success rate when I ask the pilots if it's flat when they're flying. They all say, yeah, of course. So, I mean, and like, do you account for curvature, or do you just fly the plane like it's flat? They say like it's flat. Or if I say, pretty flat up there, huh? They're like, oh yeah. Like every single time I've ever talked to a pilot, and I do it, I've done it quite a bit.
It starts on day one of flight training, Austin. The first thing they teach you to do for straight and level flight is they say, pick a point on the horizon, put your nose on it, and fly towards it. And you know what? You will look down at your rate of climb indicator and you'll find that you're in a level flight. So, and not to mention all the documentation that we've got from every intelligence agency and physics work. I mean, my God, the ballers have nothing. Even their own mainstream agencies betray them by coming out with documentation saying that it's flat and motionless. Why can't they see that? It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. Yeah, like, and what I don't understand about the macro is like the default position is that the Earth is flat and stationary, because for anything to actually work, we have to treat it that way. Now, if you think the Earth's a ball that spins, you have to admit that, oh, but there's a ball that spins, but it's magically crafted in such a way that it deceives us to think that the Earth is a topographical plane that's stationary, and we have to treat it that way. Like literally, like I like to say that if it came down to money, the Earth would be flat by tomorrow. Like if it had to do with money, like if people would lose lots of money, everyone would know the Earth's flat overnight. Same thing with like people's lives at risk. Like those two things really cut out the BS. And when it comes to that in practical use, you always have to treat the Earth like it's a stationary plane. So it's like, say whatever you want to, you're claiming the opposite of like all practical use cases in the history of mankind. So I think you have a pretty substantial burden of proof at that point.
Yep, without a doubt. And let's see. Yep,
Bob, can I show? Oh,
sure. Go ahead.
I'll take the show. No, I wanted to show Austin, especially about this Fight the Fat shirt. Just disgusting when you do things like, well, I don't know if it's called plagiarism, to pretend like you're giving an argument that you've come up with or something, and you're just reading off of a document. Where is the StreamYard tab? I lost it. Oh, there it is. Must be open, or else I wouldn't be able to do this. Sorry, share screen. And no, share screen too. Okay, so, I forgot you can see my whole widescreen. So this is the debate here, and this is the document I found. He doesn't tell us, number one, that it comes from a blog, Ian Visits, but we can tell it comes from the blog. Listen here.
Thanks so much, Fight the Flat Earth. The floor is all yours for your opening as well.
Now watch me as I go through this document.
Hey, James,
here.
thanks for having me on. Always fun to be here. Just back from holiday. Apparently people still think the Earth's flat. So, right, if the Earth was flat, it's simple. Engineering projects wouldn't take into account the curvature of the Earth.
And they don't.
Engineering projects do take into account curvature of the Earth. Therefore, the Earth is curved. And one thing I'd like to talk about today is the London Underground. Crossrail's tunnels of the London Underground, the new part especially, it's so long that when they were being planned, they had to take into account the curvature of the Earth. So
he's just reading from this document.
When the current Crossrail scheme was developed in the 90s, the planners used maps based on the old Ordnance Survey National Grid reference system, known as the British National Grid, or the BNG. It turned out to be really crude and have a lot of distortions and
Can
nowhere
you pause
near
it for a second, Jaron?
do it.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you know, what they're having to do is they're having to cherry pick something like this to put forward as evidence when in fact, if the curvature of the Earth was actually being used in some of these constructs and super constructs, bridges, tunnels, et cetera, that information would be in every engineering document, not just a cherry picked few that they're writing an article on that they're clearly lying about, but
Right.
it would be in every single document, and it is not. So,
yep. I'll just play a little bit more, but as you can see, he's just going through this person's blog article and using it as if it's some sort of evidence.
Isn't it the stuff being level going to cause some problems for flooding though too? Don't they want it like they try to make foundations so they're not perfectly level often so they can eliminate and prevent floods, right?
Right. So it usually has a down spout or tries to go a certain direction.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole problem with that, I don't know. I have a problem with that argument. I didn't used to, but now I do, just because I get that if you're going to do a railroad or rail tracks, you would just put the tracks down and then put the next one down. I don't really think you would ever measure, okay, we need 70 miles of track and therefore we have this much curve and we have this. I don't think that's how you would do it because each part of the Earth is flat, whether we live on a globe Earth or not. So you would just lay track, wouldn't you?
yes.
Yeah.
And it isn't how they do it. And even railroad engineers have come forward and said
Right.
that.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. So then to go back now and say, oh, this
Based
underground.
on, then the crossrail tunnels could have seen deviations of up to 20 centimeters per kilometer of tunnel. And this was due to the curvature of the Earth. Might not be a huge issue in some places, but because this was the new tunnels, it had to squeeze in and out between all the existing tunnels and sewer systems. So there were some gaps that were so small that if they hadn't taken into account the curvature of the Earth, then the drilling machine would have just drilled through one of the.
You really think there's no like geo shifting at all on that? Like, you know,
So stupid.
when you get settling, like you build a house, your house settles into the dirt, right? And you think throughout all of that distance, there's going to be no settling whatsoever?
And all you would need is one person, right? So he's basically saying, oh, because it's in the plans for, it's not in the plans as in like you hand it to the guy who's drilling or you hand it to the guy who's digging a tunnel with a shovel. It's not like that. It would be basically the story is that they had to develop a new type of map to take the curvature into account. And see, they talk about it here. The figure below shows the 3 points on have the same latitude and longitude, but there are 3 different coordinate systems. So they just had to create another coordinate system because the other 3 that they had weren't accurate. And they say, oh, we had to take in the curvature of the Earth into our new coordinate system. Well, of course they have to say that. They can't not say that. And it would take one person to be told to make sure you calculate this in there. And guess what? If they did calculate it in there and then you went and dug the tunnels, it wouldn't make a difference. That's what I'm saying is that it's not evidence of anything.
Did they not take it into account before? I mean, didn't they know 2,000 years ago?
Yeah, they say they didn't take it into account before because they didn't need to. But now because there's already tunnels down there, they do need to take it into account. But it's like you could write that. It'd be the equivalent of us saying that because there's a document out there that says, we designed this because the Earth is flat, and then they lay out a bunch of evidence or lay out a bunch of plans for this shopping mall. Well, we can't. It's not okay to then take that evidence and say, "See here, look at they planned it with a flat Earth in mind." That's still not evidence that that was actually done. It's just evidence that was said. So to go on a debate and use that as evidence when there should be a lot of other things. And then Austin, you might know what I'm talking about here. He does. Have you seen this picture that they always show? Let me find it real quick. Because Dave Weiss brought up a good point the other day, something he noticed on his boat, which I totally agree with, that you can have an, I can't remember where it is. There's a picture that they always show that they say, this one. Have you seen this picture?
I don't know.
Oh, I keep seeing people use it. It's like some observation where the guy says he's as tall as these posts and that these mountains are like twice as tall as the posts. And so they say, because the mountain falls below this post, it's proof that the Earth is curved.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
I think they're just pointing at the mountains themselves and saying, oh, there's mountains. The Earth can't be flat.
Yeah, I've certainly
Does the
seen
guy
the
not
argument.
understand angular size?
Dude, I've never understood it. Like the mountains didn't change angular size; they're further away. You clown.
Yeah, it's so stupid. And Dave made a good point that, like, if you picture a person say there's a building off in the distance that's, I don't know, 500 feet, and you're standing very close to a tree line that's in front of those buildings, but the trees are only 12 feet high and you're 6 feet high. Well, you can't see the building that is 500 feet high because your view is blocked by the trees right in front of you. As you start to back away from those trees, slowly that building would show itself. That's
Well, yeah, it's like saying that the street light above your head is taller than the street light down the road because it's higher from my perspective right here.
Yeah. So, and they use it all the time. They've actually said it that, oh, you know what? This picture, if I'm not mistaken, isn't this the one picture that Ranty says made him change sides?
See, I can't really see it, but I don't think so. I think it might be different, but yeah.
What did Ranty say he changed sides for? Besides
It was a picture. It was a
money,
picture.
money.
It was a picture. I think it was a little different picture though. It was like it had a city landscape and Ferris wheel and stuff like that. But the same type of argument.
Same type of
has
argument.
has been presented to me numerous times. Yeah, like that the stuff in the back is way taller than the stuff in the front, and that can only happen on a globe where it looks like it's lower. And I'm like,
what?
Dude, I'm literally getting stupider like listening to that. Like it's really crazy.
It's so stupid.
Dude, they'll swear up and down, bro, that it could only happen if there's a ball.
I wonder if they realize how dumb they look. Like the whole argument of we can see further the higher up you go, so therefore the Earth's curved. It's like, how do you not realize that on a flat ground you would see higher the higher you are? How do they not?
Dude,
realize?
that's another one. They say that like horizon drop with altitude debunks the flat Earth and it proves Earth's a globe. I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you people, man? If you go higher up, if I lay on the ground, I can't see as far as when I stand up.
Right.
You
That's what I told him. I said, do you think that a snake can see as far in a Home Depot as you can? Clearly not.
It's so crazy that you would even like utter something like that. This is another great piece of evidence that we're right. Is like the absurdity of their claims.
Totally. And you know what's funny is on the 24/7 feed, I still have a lot of those classic Ranty clips because Ranty, you know, in the time that he was flat Earth, he put up some of the most damning evidence to the ball ever.
I think so too.
And there's simply no undoing that. No undoing it. Just because he comes out and says, "Oh, I was wrong," he can't tell you why he was wrong, or if it is, it's so blatantly obvious that he's lying through his teeth that it's beyond belief. But you know, like I said, and I know Ranty well enough to know that he was in financial dire straits. He was also getting mixed up with some guy supposedly that was, you know, part of the Illuminati there. And I'm not exactly sure what happened, but the next thing you know, he's doing videos with conspiracy cats. And now he's just making a nice living, you know, promoting the globe. It's like,
and then he went full back to just saying the most absurd globe Earth claims, right?
Oh,
Like,
totally.
He's totally on their team now. Totally, just
yeah, that's how you know it's so not genuine. Is like he went all the way back to the most ridiculous claims on their side. Like he didn't. There's no middle ground there, so it's clearly not.
And they always like to show this, you know, with Muppet vision, right, or whatever they want to call it, where it's quite clear to see. Imagine this person's 6 foot tall and this is a 12-foot tree. That this person, if trying to look over the trees, would not be able to see said building, right? Now, if I told you this building's 500 feet, a lot of people would argue with me and say, no, it's not, because clearly if this is 6 feet and this is 12 feet, then this isn't 500. But we don't see things in orthographic form like this, meaning that the further this building gets away, the smaller it's going to appear to this person, right?
That's right. That is in 100% oppositions. The orthographic projection and the reducing pyramid, I guess, you know, as it drops from the top and the bottom of the sides, are in total stark contrast to each other.
Right.
One is what we see, and one is what somebody else sees. Well, the only thing that matters is what we see, right?
Right. So if we move this person over here, I'm just going to cover this up. Now, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Anyway, just pretend I fixed that. This person now, who has an eyesight, didn't change anything. Now they can see the building. So when those guys are showing the building fall below the eyesight, well, guess what? That as you went further and further away from this building would get so small that eventually the 500-foot building is going to be behind the tree line. So again, it's just because of how things work with perspective, and they obviously don't get it. And it works both ways. Again, this person here wouldn't be able to see the building because their eyesight's going to go this way. And then as they start backing up, this would actually rise up. They would actually then see it. It would appear from behind the trees. And the further you got away from it, it would lower back down and disappear. It's just perspective.
Yeah, so like angular size change with distance, and then just the angle of view perspective makes it look like it's going down, and
Right.
somehow that's confusing.
Yeah, I don't know how it's confusing to them, or what's happening with that picture that supposedly is another globe Earth proof, I guess, is they said, oh, well, if you put somebody here who's got a certain height, let me see if I can get the green again. So we got this person here, let's say that this telephone pole here is a certain height, and this person here is the same height. And then you've got, it doesn't look like the same height, we'll lower a little bit. So let's say those two things are identical heights. And then you've got a mountain that's 500 feet, whatever. They're basically saying if the mountain ever appears below this, then the Earth is curved, which is insane because this mountain gets smaller as it goes further away from here. And so the fact that, yeah, you can line up your eyesight with a pole here, but many things fall behind. And it's like so easy for me to say, for instance, right now I'm staring at my monitor, computer monitor. But behind the monitor are the Sierra Nevada mountains. Okay, I'm looking east right now. So the Sierra Nevadas between California and Nevada are right there. If I get to a certain position behind my monitor, guess what? The mountains are blocked by my monitor, which is a lot lower than the 15,000 feet mountains. But
dude, that's what I'm saying. You can take like a little action figure, have a 6-foot man, put the action figure right on the ground in front of the camera, and have the 6-foot man walk away in the distance, and the action figure will look like a giant compared to the dude.
Oh, well, that's because the Earth's curved.
Duh. Of course it is.
Oh God, it's so bad. Yeah, I mean that's what they're basically saying. So it's like, what? And how could something so easy? And it's the same thing. Remember with the res rhetoric, squishing the image. Like,
oh boy.
I mean, it's not even difficult to just say, like, wait a second, that doesn't seem right. I mean, couldn't I just take a picture of a flat line and squish it and get a curve? Yeah, of course you can. But they go out with it, they make evidence of it, and then they call us liars and then never address the issues. So
that's the other great piece of evidence that we're right, is that all the globe, or like the anti-flat earthers, all of them, they cling on to every single fallacious globe argument. So like none of them are like, I think I'm going to leave that one alone.
No,
that's not a good. They have to like walk the party line and say the script no matter what it is. They all say all of them. It's very funny.
Going all the way back to people like Flat Earth Math, right? Which, told us for months, if not years, that there's just simply no way to see the curvature of the Earth from Earth level. And then, of course, as soon as Soundly came out with his ridiculous Pontchartrain Bridge footage, he was all over it. Oh yeah, well this is that one rare exception, and you can even see it from the other side too. I mean, he just dropped everything he had ever said. Why? Because he has to pull the company line of what Soundly said and showed, which, my God, if I was him, I would have been dying inside. It's like, how can I support this without feeling and acting like a complete fool, right?
It's crazy. It's almost feel bad for him. I feel bad for him in a way. Is that just me? It's like, I know it's kind of hard to at times, but it's like, dude, just think about the freaking turmoil, like the moral conflict that you have to go through to just constantly be like making up lies and shucking and jiving.
Yeah.
And
they've prostituted, they've completely prostituted their credibility out. And
why would you not just do, like, why would, if let's say I believe in the globe Earth and I see a bunch of flat earthers, but there are other citizens of the country, there are other people, and they are bringing up points where they think it's fake. So what I would do is I would turn to NASA, who means nothing to me. They are an agency of the government. And I would say, hey, NASA, all these guys are saying that the Earth is flat. Can you please provide proof in any way you can, right? I wouldn't then say, oh, I'm going to go make a channel and protect what's already the going belief. Like the only reason you would do that is if you're deathly afraid that the other will take over. And
or you just really need some illusory value in life.
Yeah, or you do what Neil deGrasse Tyson does, right? Neil deGrasse Tyson puts it in the framework of, oh my God, flat Earth is just so stupid. You just don't give them the time of day.
Right.
And that's, of course, what they're going to go with because, oh yeah, we're so far above that. It's not even worth discussing with these morons.
Well, they're smart enough. They don't want people looking into it, right?
No, they don't.
But that they virtue signal, actually, that their response is that it's their moral obligation to fight the misinformation and stupidity that is flat Earth. Like
Wow.
they virtue signal as if we don't see that actually deep down they're very scared of the idea that flat Earth will win
Right.
overall, and
'Cause they're
that
atheists.
everyone will get to hear. They're afraid of everyone getting to hear the real info, like how they heard all the legit flat Earth arguments. They're afraid of everyone else hearing that because they think they'll lose.
Right.
And that's why my tour made them so mad. I've never gotten so much hate email, but it's because they couldn't do anything from the internet. They had to watch me talk to normal people and tell them the real info. And that scares them. They're like deathly afraid of like the real info getting out there. That's why they all secretly condone our censorship.
Yeah, that's because they're atheists, and atheists will do whatever it takes to make sure that there's no possible chance, because that's what science is for many people. It's a way to make God not necessary, because you just, instead of putting your faith in these ancient guys and the Hebrews or whatever, you put your faith instead in these science guys who have no bias and they don't have any beliefs. And so they must be just giving the true facts, even though we know, as Austin and I went through a couple weeks ago, that clearly they have the most bias and their entire worldview is shaped philosophically. And these guys are just falling for the trap, but they left religion. They've obviously cursed God in every possible way. And so now they're afraid of that being true, and they'll do anything they can to make sure it's not. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And that ties into like they want the majority of people, they need consensus on their side so they can feel like science and man's smarter than the stupid religions and God. And they need majority to jive with that atheistic worldview that they have. So that's why they're afraid of other people hearing the info and the tide shifting, because they wouldn't know what to do, because they need the illusory men are so smart and we have it all figured out, and this is the consensus of science, and this disproves God, right? So it's like this crazy turmoil they're going through, and in this weird way I have empathy for them in a way, because it's like sad, you know?
I think it's sad the religions that have cucked to science, which are many, right? They're all, oh no, the earth is a sphere. And then the hoops that they jump through to get around the Quran, to get around the Bible. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. If you're a Christian and you don't believe that the earth is flat and stationary, to me, you're not a Christian then. You clearly don't believe what's in the Bible. You just have made up your own religion and what feels comfortable and what hasn't you been shamed enough for yet. Because it just seems like, like the guy, Danny Faulkner, right? Who's a Christian, right? Doesn't he work for Answers in Genesis or something like that?
Yep, he does.
Right. So, but he's cucked so hard to the, I guess, I don't know. Does he believe then that the earth is 6,000 years old? He would, right?
Well, who knows? But
Who
you
knows
would
that?
think, yeah,
You would think so. But again, they've, that's the one that they won't, the globe, they've already adopted that as part of their religion, which makes no sense. And then the hoops that they jump through, and by saying that, oh, well, God said he sits above the, no, it's like, what are you talking about? Even if he said sphere, nothing else jives with that. The devil taking Jesus to the top of a mountain and showing him everything. Or,
dude, every single part of the Bible, the first thing that
Yes.
the Creator says to Moses after not having no other gods is he talks about the levels of heaven down to the earth, levels of the creation, right?
Mhm.
It's like, or whenever it says the waters above, I've heard one like globe apologist, quote unquote Christian, say he's talking about the moisture in the air.
Yeah. Oh, really? Is he?
Wow.
I had a paper here the other day. I can't find it, where it was a guy talking about the Quran, and man, it was sad to see him jump, because the Quran basically says that Allah lays out the earth like a carpet, with a tent over it. And this guy was like going through all these steps of basically saying, oh, well, yeah, because where you live is like a carpet, where we each exist is like a carpet. It's laid out for you like a carpet, but the entire thing is a sphere. It's like they just try so hard to prove their book that they cuck to the science opinion.
Yeah, and this is the blunt reality. They don't actually believe in their book.
Right.
I mean, like, that's the actual truth. Like, it's just like religion. It's like the back of their mind, they're comfortable in case they die. Maybe just if, what do I have to lose? And that's why, like, I respect people that are critical of religion and even the Bible, which I believe in, though it's been messed with. Like, I respect people that critique it and are critical of it much more than the people that just pretend that they believe in it, right? Because that's like just so disingenuous. I'd much rather be around like genuine people. That's wild to me to even try to conceive of like doing mental gymnastics and just constantly lying your whole life all the way down to the fundamentals of your worldview. It's honestly very sad.
And when we
Yeah, I think science is the one world religion. It is. It's the one thing that people will set aside their supposed beliefs, right? They say they believe in this or they believe in I'm a this, I'm a that, but then they all believe in science.
Yeah.
You know, it covers all religions.
And we just have to remember that all old books have been rewritten, and they've been rewritten by people who have been either told or who believe in the current beliefs. And so they are told to change things. So I was just reading this book the other day, Orbis Pictus, which was like the very first school book for children, for boys mostly, basically back in 1658 is when it was written. And so I was reading it, and sure enough, right at the beginning, this guy points out that a curious addition exists where he says, on the other hand, the Vienna edition contains a curious additional cut. It gives number 4, the heaven, practically in this edition, but puts another cut underneath it in which the earth is revolving about the sun. So,
wow.
I mean, it's like, okay, so now the book has changed to say that the earth revolves about the sun, whereas actually this is the original edition. And if you go now, or what it says in the beginning was, sorry, it's up here, I think a little bit more.
The sun revolves about the earth.
Yeah.
This is the mid 1800s, you said?
1600s, or but again, it's also after Copernicus. So the entire lie about that being decided, obviously not by 1658. This guy didn't even mention it. Here it is. So he's talking about the heaven is wheeled about and encompass the earth standing in the middle. The sun, wherever it is, shineth perpetually, blah, 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 blah. So now that doesn't say that anymore. Now it says, or it's that the line underneath that says, as the ancients believed, but now, what does it say? I lost the exact words. It's up here. Here. Said, where is it at? Sorry, I'm in the wrong spot. Where was that? Up here. Here we go. So here. And it says, as the ancients used to think, for later authorities hold that the motion of the earth is about the sun. But if you read that book, you would think the author said that the author's saying, oh, and it moved, we think it moves about, for that's what the ancients once thought, but now authorities hold that we move around the sun. Again, so we can't even trust books because they've been changed. You have to actually go and research and figure out what's changed and why it changed. And it's always these guys who remember, every single book has been rewritten. So if there's a book pre-1600, it has been rewritten. It is not the original. We don't even have original. I think the oldest original book we have is like the year 1200, 1300.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because how many old newspaper clip articles do we have that people have uncovered, speaking of the same thing that Ruth was talking about, that they still taught flat Earth even after the turn of the 20th century, right? In the early 1900s, right? It's
there
like
was a city that believed it too, right? Zion.
Yeah. I mean, it's everywhere. And, by now you have to think that, scientism has got to be the largest religion on earth, because that's exactly what it is. It's a religion. There's nothing scientific about what they tell us about the world we live in or the cosmos at all. It's all lies. It's all conjectures. And the thing is all the mainstream priests of that model admit it freely. Look at Michio Kaku, beginning of the Globebusters theme. Nobody I know uses the scientific method. Well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's unbelievable.
When it's just trusting people off of their word, that's it. I believe this because my teacher said so. That's indoctrination at its core.
And that's sad that that's the way they taught us all. Because I just can't picture sending a child to a school where they're going to sit in a desk and listen to a person at the front of the room tell them all the truths. Like, how did nobody mention to their children, like, okay, well, whatever these guys tell you, you still want to use critical thinking. You still want, like, why would we think that that's how the world would operate? I guess you're just naive as a child. But to think that the elite are sitting around in big office buildings thinking, how do we make people more smart? How do we get children to be the smartest they can be? Of course not. What do they think about? They think, how do we get more tax-paying slaves who are more docile, who are dumber than they currently are? And that's what they've been working on. So the entire education system is based on the dumbing down of your children. This is why go read any letter from the year 1900, 1920, and you'll realize that every single person back then could write and talk better than anybody can today.
By far.
Yeah, B.O.B. said it great. He said, just look at the salary paid to teachers. It's obvious they don't want us to graduate into leaders, which is exactly what it is.
People were smart thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
And now today they're dumb, influenceable, non-critical thinking morons. I hate to say it, but it's just true. And we all
no
know
one can
it.
even write in cursive anymore, bro.
I know. That's so
And then
sad.
look at the autographs of people back in the day. It looks like a freaking piece of art, like just their autograph. And now people can't even like write in cursive.
People back in the day actually knew how to survive. You know, if things really broke down, they could go out and survive in the wilderness, but no one knows how to do that anymore, or very few of us.
No,
I think,
because they
anymore.
want you
There are
dependent on
people,
the
but-
government.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's all a dependent system. And yeah, there's nothing more telling about how broke our system is than that alone right there. Is when people do not know how to fend for themselves.
This is a great book, though, if people want to read it. It's interesting because it's 1658 and it's for school children. But if you notice, he just goes through every single item, explaining exactly what it is. And the way they did this for school children was they put the English here and the exact Latin to the right of it. So the student learns the English and the Latin. And it's a great point. You would never teach a student to speak another language like they teach us Spanish in high school. It's ridiculous. Why wouldn't you just have a book written in English here with the Spanish here? You don't need to know it like they try and teach you in school. Oh, you got to do this. No, you just need enough to get by, be able to communicate. And in this way, if you read a book that was English here, Spanish here, it'd be great. That's how you'd learn the words. But it just goes through everything. Heaven, clouds, what are birds, the earth? How does heaven work? The sun? How does fire work? Spark, smoke. And it goes through every single thing you can imagine. And I could see where children would love the drawings. It's talking about teaching this starting at 6. And that a student, by the end, I mean, you would know everything. It talks about fruits, vegetables, what different types of plants, flowers, every time a flower, pot herbs, corn, things you can, banks and ponds, what the rivers do, they rush, how grapes grow. The living creature liveth, perceiveth, moveth itself, is born, dieth, is nourished, and groweth, standeth and sitteth, lieth and goeth, how an egg works, how a peacock
they taught
works.
this in school back then? That's unreal.
This is the very first book.
This is doctorate philosophy material today.
Yeah, exactly. His 6-year-old knew this. Talking about weights, an ounce, how much, how to weigh things. Serpents. I saw here a dragon, a winged serpent, by the way. So they say dragons don't exist. Obviously, in 1600, they thought they existed enough to put them in books. Bookworm, maggots, how they work, a tick, frogs, and you just keep going through this book, and it's a house is divided into rooms: entry, stove, kitchen, buttery, jobs, how things work. He that wants to work in, how to wash clothes, how to be a barber shop, how that works, how a horsekeeper works, and all the way down to.
And they really covered everything, didn't they?
Yeah, it's great. And if you look up, what is it called again? Orbis Pictus. I think it's Orbis Pictus. And I think the Wikipedia says it's the first book ever.
Yeah. This system needs to be just torn down and recreated from the bottom
Why wouldn't you have
up.
a book like that? Like, why are we separating children by age? Like, oh, everybody who's 9 years old is in this grade. Well, you know what? Some 9-year-olds are way smart and should be pushed way ahead of people. And some 9-year-olds are pretty dumb. So you got to move them back a little bit. That's
and they should be
totally.
Yeah, they should also be adapted to their talents as well.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I taught my kids, my oldest kids, all of the kindergarten curriculum before they turned 5. And so by the time it's time for them to start going to school, okay, well, they already know all of the kindergarten curriculum. So let's just skip kindergarten. Where's the test? Let's test them out of it. I want to show you. And the public school system over here, they said, no, she has to go through kindergarten anyway. I was like, No, she already knows this stuff. There's no point in doing that. And so we had to go through the back door, and we went through online school. And so we could get her through all the way through all of kindergarten, all of first grade, all in the same year. And then after that, then we were able to go through and put her back into the system many years later and say, oh, yeah. And so we still get flags every once in a while. Hey, she's not in the right age group because she's a year ahead. And it's like, yeah, deal with it.
Yeah,
it's just,
exactly.
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah, this is all exactly why people should seriously contemplate homeschooling in 2022.
Yeah, I don't think you can send your kid unless, or at least start taking steps now to try and come up with a way that you don't have to do it. But yeah, just real quick to finish this, says published in 1658. It was the first widely used children's textbook with pictures, published in Latin and German later. And it also was English. The English version came out in like 1658, English version 1659. So pretty old. And again, seeing things like dragons in there makes me laugh, and it makes me wonder: are dinosaur bones dragons of some type? Who knows?
Yeah, because they certainly believed in them back then. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And as far as putting kids in their curriculums that they excel in, it's just like, when our Jaron was in elementary school, he literally was the IT support for his elementary school. And by the time he got to high school, he knew more than the teachers by far that actually taught. And it was a technical college. He actually went to a technical college. And it just blows me away that, and lots of kids have lots of abilities like this. I mean, Jaron my Jaron is definitely a prodigy in his computer field, but there are kids that are, in fields of art or history. I mean, my good God, they're amazing. And this is the kind of stuff that they should be matched to, and then promote those people to the rest of the world to really bring our intellectual levels back to where they should be.
Right.
Exactly. Like, wow, this kid is really understanding electricity very quickly. Let's put him on the right path, and maybe he'll help make the world a better place. It just seems like such a simple idea.
Rather than have everybody do algebra, like literally none of us use algebra today. It's just the way it goes. But there are some who do. And so I'm sure those people, when you're like going to get a job that has to do with that, well, then you can learn algebra, but you don't need to teach it to everybody.
Yeah, exactly. But no one knows how to do their taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't need algebra to do taxes. It's simple addition and subtraction.
Such a big difference.
Not a grab your ankle.
My arithmetic is something that I do think is important, but that's not the kind of math when you're talking about algebra 2 and plotting on a graph and things like that. I mean, we don't need to do that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, you know what? We're over 3 hours, and it went by fast again. So, great show today, guys. Really good talks. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I want to give a shout out to a couple of people in Rockfin, Mace Smith and Murray Cole. Thank you so much for the tips that you got in there. No comments put with it. Didn't see anything in the YouTube at all. So that's enough there. And that's about all we have. So I'm going to go around, I guess, one more time, see what anybody's got coming up. And I think we're going to call it a show. So let's see. Eero had to take off. He had things to do, not to mention it's really late in Europe, I guess. So, that's the way it is, but whatever. He had things he had to do. And, oh, you know what? One more thing. Let me add this to the stream really quick so you guys can see this. The picture that you're seeing right now, I just wanted to show this as a final cap. This is the inside of FE Core's gyro compass. And you see this mechanism right here? That is the actual gyro itself. That's the flywheel of the gyro itself. It's really, really little, itty bitty. So, people think that these gyros have to be huge because they take up a whole console in a boat, right? That, you would think that the gyro is going to be absolutely huge, but it's not. It's very small because, again, when you get into gyros that are the size that Stefan built, well, that's a problem because the bearings, and then here we have the modern day, which is virtually the exact same size. This is the gyro that I have. This is the gyro that Rob Durham has. This is the gyro that John Savage has. and so many people in the flat Earth community. And this is the super high precision gyro that once you spin this bad boy up, it'll turn and turn and turn and turn for a half an hour before you have to, spin it up again. And if you don't feel like doing that, you can just throw a motor on it and have it go forever. And this is why, we have the tools today to take these gyroscopes, put them in an airplane, fly a certain amount of directions. And again, like I said, it's going to tell us whether or not we register any pitch change, which we don't, which means the Earth is flat, or that if there's going to be any divergence from the dead reckoning path that it's giving us, which there won't be because the Earth is not spinning, right? And no matter what the ballers say to try and discredit this evidence, it's there. It's in our face. The Navy did videos. Like I said, I showed the Navy video a while ago. They say that this must happen, and it doesn't. And the only thing that the ballers can say is, well, yeah, because it's binding. It's like, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. And frankly, your knowledge of engineering and mechanics is embarrassing. So, just shut up. All right. You don't know what you're talking about. So there you have it. All right, guys. So, Kyle, I guess we'll whip over to you really quick. Do you have anything coming up this week?
Well, I want to do some of these refraction experiments that I've been talking about. And then after that, I really want to do some more translating with some of the Spanish channels out there that have some great content. It's just in Spanish. And so I want to go ahead and translate some more of that into English.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Okay. That'll be good.
Kyle, do you have another channel?
No, just this one.
Okay. And that's all you did on YouTube?
Yeah, I just do it on YouTube. That's it.
Now, I heard a channel the other day. I can't remember what the topic was, but I was listening. I was like, is that Kyle? But it was like some other subject.
Some other people kind of echo me and just kind of put my videos on their channels.
No, this was about a completely different subject. It was like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle channel or something.
No, I don't do anything like that. I love Ninja Turtles though, but yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Zach, what do you got coming from you? Anything?
We'll see. I might go live with the Tesla coil, depending on how well I can get it to run outside. Besides that, just the same old Iron Rail Media stuff.
Okay. Sounds good. Austin, what do you got coming up?
So we pretty much got everything moved in. We're just trying to put everything together, and I'm setting up a little stream room. So yeah, I guess trying to finish all this stuff up and get everything finished set up, and then start my channel back up. And yeah, I think I have a bunch of really good ideas for some dope content, so it should be cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, everything for both systems has arrived here, except for the power supplies. And guys, these video cards are such monsters. They have so much power that we were required to put in 1,000 watt power supplies to even run those bad boys.
And they have 3 fans each. Each of them has 3 fans on them. They're just monsters.
Wow. Hope that's not too noisy.
No, it's not. No, they're actually quite quiet. But man, the power, the rendering power is just incredible. And Jaron, don't you have the same video card in your machine as well?
I have a 3090.
Well, that's what's in one of them. The 3090.
Yeah, Austin has a 3080.
Which is virtually almost identical, but not quite.
My rendering time went from being like 8 times real speed, so like a half-hour video might take me 4 hours. On this one, it's like maybe a tenth, maybe a fifth. So if I'm doing an hour video, 10-minute render.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, nice.
And how much RAM do you have?
On the card or on the computer?
On the computer.
I think 32.
Because we put 64 gigs of DDR5 on this.
How do I check that? Go to settings or?
I don't know if it'll tell you the DDR. It might be in the system information, but of course DDR5 is the next generation super fast RAM.
Oh yeah, I don't think I have DDR5. I don't know where it would say that.
Yeah, it was also a little bit more expensive, but I figured, Austin's worth it.
I think so too. I don't know. Does it down here? So I have 64 RAM too, 64 gigabyte RAM, but it doesn't say. It doesn't say which
Yeah.
DDR number it is.
Yeah, and of course, faster you get that RAM, the faster it increases the overall system speed. So, yeah, and Austin and Sean are going to be kicking butt. That's going to be cool. So,
yeah, man, I'm so excited, man, because I took out a little business loan, we'll say, and setting up a nice little stream room. So it should be dope. It should be like a whole new level of content. I'm pumped.
yep, for sure. All right,
Yeah,
and last but not least, Sharon, what you got coming up, sir?
I do have on. I was going to show this if I can real quick. I just want to show this picture. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I've got a guy on Wednesday. His name is Achinyata Govinda. I think that's his name at least. Where's the share screen? But I'm on YouTube looking for a share screen button. Share screen and over here. All right. So this is his map. So he sent me this map. It's huge, by the way. This is like 4 foot by 2 or 4 foot by 3.
Oh, wow.
And, it's the new standard Vedic map of the world. And he is the creator of it. His name's up here, Achinyata Govinda. He's very into the Vedics and the monks and that kind of thing. And I'm going to take pictures of each section and we're going to go through and he's going to explain all this writing down here. So that's going to be on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I've got Speaker's Corner. Friday, I've got my show. And then back here on Sunday again. So definitely check that out. Come see the stuff on my channel and become a channel member if you want. I mean, just so people know, I hate more than anything selling myself. I can't stand it. I feel gross. Anytime I say be a channel member or go to Rockfin and sign up or do this or do that, and I know everybody else does too. So just a reminder that if you can, support the people doing this because otherwise they're not going to be able to, and there's not that many doing it. So to me, I want to support. I've got like 22 people that I'm a patron of. And it's just important to support those that you're watching a lot of content. So if you're signed up at Rockfin, that's support, obviously. But anytime you've got extra, we could always use the help. I'll just leave it there.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and we're not exactly getting rich on super chats. We got a total of $25 in tips for the whole day, which is appreciated, but it's not a lot. But the Rockfin helps, and that's the reason why we're going to go back, and we are going to do this, and Jaren's going to do the same thing. We are going to go back to producing exclusive content on Rockfin, because these people are truly our supporters, and they will be the ones that keep us operating. So, no matter what you think about truth and how it should be free, it takes time, effort, money, and everything else to do this. And we are under attack from all sides constantly doing it. And if you don't recognize that, then I don't know what to say,
But in the end, money or no money, we're still going to be fighting.
We're still going to do it. Yeah, we're still going to do it regardless. So there you have it.
But support definitely makes a difference. It helps us get things on hyperdrive.
It scares me too when you hear things like the money coming out with it Alex Jones makes me sick, because I hope nobody thinks any of us have anything like that going on.
God, no.
Like scraping.
Well, some people do, man. Some people think that, like, I've heard people talk about you like, no, Jaren's making a kill, and I'm like, oh, really? Oh, is he really? I'm like, dude, you guys have no idea, bro. That's not how this works. I can assure you.
Nope, we spend $3,000 a month just in groceries here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. So
if I had money like that, you'd see me out like doing all kinds of road trips, and yeah, I'd be traveling all over the world to just go do these observations in different places, get testimonies from different
or interviews or things. I mean, now I've been looking for the last couple of days at a high-speed camera. I had no idea how expensive they are, so I'm probably the wind's out of my sails a little bit there. But I wanted to really follow up with the Dr. Emoto's investigation into water, because I've realized water is probably the answer for extrasensory perception. It's probably the way that the ancients communicated, because water keeps memory, and water responds to our emotions and our thoughts so there's so much that goes into that, but I can't even study the things I want to study because it's just way out of the ballpark with anybody who thinks I'm getting rich, come look at my my finances. And I actually employ people. Flatman X basically takes every penny I make on the YouTube side because he does my clips and I want the clips out. So he gets paid basically everything I do. So I make nothing from YouTube.
And well, you could have been crushing, Jaron, if you weren't censored so bad. I mean, you've been stuck around 150,000 subs for how many years now?
Yeah, and the sad thing about that is they don't let me monetize my live streams. So the only thing I can monetize is the clips. So then, Flatman X is making those, so he gets paid that. Same thing with Patreon. I have like, I don't know, 2,000 or 2,200 bucks that comes in, but I pay 2 employees that kind of manage and help me with that. So I'm like even helping, and I'm giving back with the Patreon, 22 people that I support myself. So, and then you've got Rockfin, which was great for a while, and then it went to about half of what it was because after 6 months, I think it is, you no longer get the full amount. You go to a retention acquisition 50-50 split. So basically everything you're making goes to half after the 6 month of you bringing people on. So yeah, it's difficult and trying to figure out how you want to provide everything for everyone. You want to give all your content to everyone. You don't want things to be, so it sucks because when I don't, and I give everything to everybody, well, then why would somebody be a member at Rockfin? So you start losing subs there. So I don't know if you saw, Bob, but on Friday, what I did, and I'm going to start doing more. I'm going to do this, I think, exclusively for now. I did the whole show on YouTube and the whole show on Rockfin. Then as soon as the show was over, I went and cut out the second half from YouTube. And I did it at a time where I had a graphic up that said, if you're watching this in the future, you need to go to Rockfin to watch the rest. But I'll tell you also that I haven't had one sign up because of that. So that's how much it's helped.
Yeah.
No signups this week. So it's like, okay, well, it's not really helping. But again, what are you going to do? You have to try and do something. I just hate it. I don't know if people think we like it, or having sponsors or having to say Truth Smacks every show I do. I'm trying to help people out. Like I've never received any money. Well, that's not true. She donates through Rockfin. I mean, she sends tips, but yes, I'm not getting paid for those things. It's not like when you have these deals with, I don't know, Vord VPN or whatever these other guys get. Flat earthers don't get any of those opportunities. So it's all, what do you want to call it? Organic. So
what's crazy is I've actually gotten quite a few freaking emails offering me money to like slot some of their stuff, like $1,000, or name your price if that's not enough. And I just won't do it, like out of principle, I'm just not going to take a sponsorship.
Yeah,
and that's another thing I think that's kind of just like overlooked. It's like the truthers that are trying to really like do it morally are really like hurting themselves financially as well. So, but I mean, I think the real ones know, the real ones are going to support the real ones, and the rest can do whatever.
Yep. There you go. So
Yeah.
Alliance Creed, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, please buy Zach a fresh new first aid kit just in case. Amen to that. And a fire extinguisher too, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, guys, that's it for today. We'll see you midweek. And until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.